Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Council meeting. I'm Deputy Mayor Trent Sullivan, and I'm chairing tonight's meeting in the absence of our Mayor Stephanie Asher, who's currently taking a leave of absence. First of all, Council would like to acknowledge the Wurrung as the traditional owners of this land, waterways, and skies on which we're meeting on tonight. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. We also acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. Now, this meeting is being broadcast on the internet, and the recording of this meeting will be published on Council's website for all to view. Good evening, and welcome to the second Council meeting of 2022. As you can see, we are meeting tonight via Zoom once again. However, I'm pleased to say that in the light of changed directions issued by the Victorian Government today, it's very likely that we'll be back in meeting in person for our next Council meeting. That means we'll be in the Council chamber at City Hall, and the community will be able to once more join us and make submissions and ask questions in person, which is great news. For tonight though, thank you for tuning into the live stream. For those who prefer to watch this way, the live stream will continue to be available when the meeting returns to being in person. Now, we have a number of important items on today's agenda, so we're going to get straight into it. Councillors asked for a strict adherence on speaking time limits tonight. One item we have up now is the apologies and leaves of absence. Tonight, I ask that Councillor Asher be noted as an apology, as Councillor Asher has been granted leave of absence. Second to that, I also request that Councillor Murray be noted as an apology this meeting. Councillor Murray is seeking that a leave of absence be granted from the 18th of February to the 23rd of February inclusive. Councillors, can I please have a mover? Councillor Grisbeck, seconder. Councillor Harwood, all those in favour? Thank you. All those against? It's carried. Thank you, councillors. If there's further apologies or leaves of absence, please let me know. Now, declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest to be noted tonight in the agenda? If any do arise during the meeting, please let them be known straight away. Confirmation of the minutes. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to confirm tonight's the council meeting minutes from the 1st of February 2022? A mover, please. Councillor Aiken, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Harwood. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Now we'll move into public question and submission time. The next agenda item is, as I said, unfortunately, we're not able to take questions directly from the public as we conduct this meeting virtually. However, we are continuing to accept questions and submissions from the community online at this time. So everybody who's felt the need or wished to voice their opinion will certainly be heard. We've received questions from 9 community members for tonight's meeting, which will be read out and answered shortly. Each person will also receive a written response via email, as well as have their question and response published in full on the city's website. It's also important to note that each councillor has read these questions that have been sent in. So to the questions, and my thank you in advance to the councillors who will be assisting with the reading of the questions this evening. Councillor Grisbeck, over to you for the first question, please. Thank
you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Question number 1 is from Richard Walter. And I'll read the 3 questions and then we'll hand over. You can take the reins back, Mr Deputy Mayor. The Geelong Miniature Railway wishes to know if the first stage of the proposed fixed railway was fully funded, would council lease us the land needed at a peppercorn rental no more than $150 per annum in line with other miniature railways within Australia? Question number 2 is Geelong Miniature Railways sees this proposed project as a long-term tourist attraction that would attract tourists and railway enthusiasts into the region, as well as being a developmental and skills-based community facility. How does this fit in with council's future and community development and tourism plans? And the last question is the Geelong Miniature Railway sees the Fountain of Friendship Park or Seagull Paddock as an ideal spot for the proposed fixed railway project as it comes close to the main roads with access to the ring road, public transport and close to a shopping centre and schools. Can you please advise us with regards to the council's view on this community attraction being located within the Fountain of Friendship Park? I think that's the end of the questions. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'll throw to Michael DeGainer to answer as on behalf of Community Life, Customer and Corporate Services. Michael, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for your questions, Richard. So in response to the first question, when leasing land, the city is guided by the Local Government Act. The fees and charges for community sport and recreation facilities are guided by the Council's Fair Play strategy, and they're published annually in the city's budget documents. Any commitment to offering peppercorn rental for council owned or managed site is subject to an assessment in line with the requirements of both the Act and the strategy. This ensures that the city delivers on its responsibility to ensure that we are operating and providing access to community facilities in an equitable, sustainable and a transparent way. In regards to your second question, as local government, we generally work with a certified registered training organisation, our local learning employment network, or a Learn Local coordinator when providing development skills to community members. The city would encourage you to connect with these types of organisations in best meeting this goal. With regard to tourism, Tourism Greater Geelong and the Bellarine is about to commence development of a sustainable destination master plan, which will assess future tourism projects and growth opportunities in the region to plan for the next decade against the defined criteria based on alignment to future growth prospects. It will provide an evidence-based analysis against projects, alignment to the region's visitor markets, and potential or otherwise to sustain additional tourism attractions, noting there's already a miniature railway attraction in Port Arlington. From a tourism perspective, Port Arlington Miniature Railway continues to be promoted via Tourism Greater Geelong and the Bellarine as a family attraction and offer in the region. In regards to your third question, the city does not currently have a 10 to 15 acres of land available that meets the stated needs of this project. Two sites referenced here by your question are currently used for open space by the broader community. There are a number of parties who have expressed interest in open space sites, including those mentioned, rather uses. Any change of use would require a public consultation and engagement process to occur first. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Michael. Thank you, much appreciated. And thank you once again to Richard Walter for his submission. I'll now move on to submitted number 2, Brian Gray, to be read up by Councillor Contel, please.
Thank you, Mr Acting Mayor. Yes, so Brian Gray from the Geelong Miniature Railway has submitted a question and I'll read it out. It's, did you know that Geelong Miniature Railway is a registered charity which is tax and GST exempt, and the organisation is also currently working on DGR status? Did you know that Geelong Miniature Railway and the Lions Club of Norlane and Coria have come to build and run the fixed railway, as well as to operate a transportable 7.25 miniature railway system, which will be used to raise funds for the fixed railway and for local charities? Did you know that the Geelong Miniature Railway project has some 150,000 in assets and project pledges, and the club has been promised additional pledges from local businesses when the club obtains land? Question 1, would the councillors present please get behind our project and motion the Lands Department to help us to find the appropriate 15 acres of land?
Thank you very much, Councillor Contel. I'll throw again to Director Michael DeGainer to answer that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And my video won't start, so there it has. My video has started now, so thank you. And thanks for your question, Brian. In responses to your questions 1, 2 and 3, yes, the city is aware of the efforts of the Geelong Miniature Railway and is also aware of the scope and aspirations of this project as well. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. We're heading now to submission number 3, Jan Nell Dikoka, to be read out by Councillor Nelson. Councillor Nelson, please. You're on mute, Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. The joys of turning 50. The Greater Geelong Urban Forest Strategy Action Plan, adopted by Council in November 2015, includes to increase the demand from residents for a street tree outside their house as a KPI. Question 1, A, Since 2015, has the City of Grey Geelong run any campaigns to encourage residents to request a street tree? And B, if so, please provide more details about these campaigns. And she goes on to say, to note, the public questions submitted during February 22 council meeting included questions about the City of Greater Geelong's tree planting on request scheme. City Services responded that the annual 2021-2022 budget for the scheme is $866,000. Mr. Miller also explained that the budget provides for the planting of 2 years of maintenance of tree for 2,300 trees. Shall I answer that? Get that one answered first, or read the next question, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Keep reading. Read question 2, please.
Question 2A. In addition to the $866,000 budgeted for the street tree planting on request scheme, does the City of Greater Geelong 2021-2022 budget allocate any funds to other off-street planting programs? And B, if so, what is the total amount of money allocated to street tree planting in the City of Greater Geelong's 2021-2022 budget?
Thank you very much, Councillor Nelson. Now throw to our Director of City Services, Mr. Guy Wilson-Brown, to answer that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the questions. We certainly appreciate the interest in Council's tree provision strategy. With respect to question 1, we haven't run any targeted campaigns to encourage residents to plant street trees. It's certainly a great idea, and it's something we will be looking at as part of new nature strip guidelines that we'll be introducing later this year. To date, our campaigned and targeted areas have been focused on the priority areas identified in the urban forest strategy, and that includes all high priority locations that are detailed in that document. With respect to question 2, we don't have additional funds for the street tree planting budget. It is $866,000, as you've mentioned in your question. And as I mentioned previously, the additional funding we do provide is for areas identified in the urban forest strategy and conservation reserves and greenways. Thank you, Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Director. Guy Wilson-Brown. Now I'll throw now to submitter number 4, which is Andrew Taylor, to read out by Councillor Aiken. Councillor Aiken, please.
Off unmute, and I do apologise. My printer's actually just going at the same time, and I can't stop it now. So I apologise. You hear that noise in the background. So question number 4 is actually from Andrew Taylor, and we thank Andrew for his question. It's actually there's a number, and it's quite lengthy. I'll start. I'm the parent of a Queen Scout who receives her award from the State Governor of Government House on Saturday. My daughter and her 2 brothers have been active members of the first Belmont Scout Group since 2010. The Belmont Scout Group is based at the Rugby Street Hall and has another hall at Dean Street in Belmont. I'm writing in relation to the Dean Street Hall, which has been leased by the Belmont Scouts from COG for over 70 years. The Dean Street Hall and adjacent building currently store scouting equipment, and the premises are used daily by multiple community and youth groups. The current lease invoice is dated until the 31st of July 2022, and COG has advised Belmont Scouts in September 2021 that the lease will not be renewed. I understand that on the 15th of this year, the Belmont Scouts received only 4 weeks' notice to vacate the Dean Street property and remove or demolish any improvements such as the storage shed that exists on the site. My first question on behalf of Andrew is, what is COG's intended use of the Dean Street site that has prompted the urgent ceasing of the current lease? Previously, in March 2020, COG provided assurances in email correspondence that if the lease was to end, COG would assist the Belmont Scouts group and other tenants in finding alternative space. Belmont Scouts is in the process of securing a larger site on the old Oberon High School site in Kidman Avenue, Belmont, where the current Rugby Street and Dean Street facilities and equipment can be consolidated and community groups can access this space. Given the amount of planning and labour required to vacate the premises and demolish the buildings, I'm concerned that a 4-week timeline seems unreasonable for a volunteer organisation to undertake. Furthermore, Belmont Scouts do not currently have sufficient space at Rugby Street to relocate the equipment stored at Dean Street, and a temporary storage site will need to be urgently located. Finally, ceasing the lease without an alternative location will disrupt a number of other community and youth organisations who regularly use the hall, and is contrary to the Council's significant commitment and efforts to encourage active community engagement and participation across the City of Greater Geelong. Question 1. Question 2, can COG please assist Belmont Scouts to find another location or alternatively contribute to the costs of renovating the Kidman Avenue site for community groups access? Question 3, if there is no urgent reason to vacate the premises, can the City of Greater Geelong please consider providing an extension to the lease termination date until the anticipated end of lease at the 30th of July, or ideally the end of calendar year 2022, to enable another location to be secured? A response, Andrew, is going to be provided by our Customer and Corporate Services Director.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken, and thank you to Andrew Taylor for the detailed submission. Also to Director Malcolm Daguna.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Andrew, for your question. Currently, the land is being considered for social housing. It's a matter of a report tonight. As far as your second question, the City has been working with Scouts Victoria for over 6 months relating to a number of properties used by Scouts on City land. This decision formed part of the broader conversations around building use, safety of users and building improvements. Scouts Victoria has agreed to removal of the building. Scouts Victoria also informed the City in September 2021 that it had already arranged an alternative venue. And in response to question 3, which should give you some comfort, Scouts Victoria has contacted the City seeking an extension till 30th of June 2022, which has already been granted. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Michael. Much appreciated. Submitted number 5 is Jennifer Banto, which I will ask Councillor Maloney to read out. Councillor Maloney, please.
Well, I nearly had a faux pas off mute. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Thank you, Jennifer, for your question. On the 22nd of February 2022, this is in relation to one of the there's a bit of a preamble here. Jennifer asks, what does not exempt under clause 43.01-4 mean, please? Could this be explained with reference to Kingsmead Street, Warren Ponds permanent heritage overlay? It is a large outbuilding to be conserved in the same way as the main homestead. The subdivision permit application for number 12 to number 16 Kingsmead Street in Warren Ponds. I could find no record of this application on the City of Greater Geelong advertised permit applications list. And it lists some further details there. So I will throw back to you, Deputy Mayor, to figure out who's going to answer this question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney. For that, I will pass on to our Director of City Planning and Economy, Gareth Smith, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you for the question, Jennifer. Glad to see you participating while still online. That's great. In response to the questions, the large outbuilding is not required to be conserved in the same way as the main homestead. The inclusion of the large outbuilding in the not exempt under clause 43.01-4 column of the heritage overlay means that an application to demolish it will need to be advertised. An objector may apply to VCAT to review a decision to grant a permit. The statement of significance for the site states that the rear gable timber outbuilding is of interest as an early survivor, but its very condition has undermined its integrity. That's quoted from the independent planning panel considered that given some interest may lie in the larger shed as a relic of the agricultural use of the land, its alteration and removal should be subject to a permit, as this would at least allow recording of the structure prior to its likely demolition. And with regard to your second question on that same property, the planning permit application 56-2022 has been received by the statutory planning for a 5-lot subdivision of the property. And again, as always, Jennifer, happy to chat to you between meetings as well regarding that project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gareth. Much appreciated. On to submitted number 6, Bill Marshall. Thank you, Bill, to be read out by Councillor Harwood. Councillor Harwood, please.
Thank you, Trent. Thank you, Mr. Marshall, for your question. And the question is, since October 2020, after the Urban Forest Strategy and the Environment Strategy were endorsed and or adopted and the heat mapping study completed, which steps did COG take to progress Geelong-specific amendments of local planning policy provisions in the Geelong planning scheme to ensure that landscaping and planning permit applications provide suitable shading and cooling of the residential urban environment to reduce heat absorption and re-radiation of hard surfaces? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. I once again throw to Director of City Planning and Economy, Gareth Smith, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Bill, for the question. The City's Environment Strategy 2020-2030 and Urban Forest Strategy 2015 to 2025 are whole of council strategies designed to be complementary to the planning requirements. The principles, directions and recommendations in both these strategies are major factors in council's decision-making processes. Council continues to seek to advocate and elevate these important priorities. However, the documents do not universally apply to planning schemes throughout Victoria. The City will amend the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme as part of our next update of the Municipal Strategic Statement to include these overarching sustainable development goals. This will supplement the existing clauses in the state section of the planning scheme, including clause 15.02-1S, which has direction to reduce urban heat island effect by greening urban areas. Council also has a range of objectives promoting best practice for environmental sustainable design in clause 22.71 of the planning scheme. There are already specific landscaping and tree planting requirements for new multi-unit developments in the general residential zone 2 and 3 and neighbourhood residential zones 2, 3, 4, 5 and 8 areas. There are no plans at this stage to introduce additional landscape requirements for these new developments.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Gareth. I'll now move on to submitted number 7, which is Katerina Izdebskaya. And I'll ask Councillor Mason to read out a question.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And the question is, which steps did COG take to progress the Geelong-specific amendments of local planning policy provisions in the Geelong planning scheme to ensure that landscaping and planning permit applications provide suitable shading and cooling of the residential urban environment to reduce heat absorption and re-radiation of hard surfaces, given that that since October 2020, after the Urban Forest Strategy and the Environment Strategy were endorsed and adopted and the heat mapping study completed?
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. I'll throw to Gareth Smith once more, please.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. Look, and thank you for the question, Katerina. Look, I won't read out the question. It was actually, we have the same answer as the previous question to Bill. They have very similar themes and intent, so which we do appreciate. This information has been emailed directly to Katerina, but it's the same response as the one previously to Bill. So if you're happy, Deputy Mayor, happy to move to the next question.
Thank you, Gareth. Much appreciated. Submitter 8, Claude Eagles. I'll throw to Councillor Maloney, please, to read out this one.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Thank you, Claude, for your question. The question is, in 2021, I raised residents' concern about the flooding risk in the Cardinia Creek catchment area linked to known problems with the main water drainage system, summarised as follows in the 2014 report on the heightened drainage and flood study commissioned by the City of Greater Geelong. The majority of the problems relate to the characteristics of the catchment, topography, development, density and age. The removal of the natural waterway and the installation of various main drains, typically built prior to the 1980s, has resulted in limited capacity in the underground pipes. And whilst a lack of clear overland flow paths results in a surcharge and excess flows throughout the private property, Council adopted the report in 2015, but instead of remedying the problems, it imposed a special buildings overlay on a number of heightened properties. These provide little protection to existing properties and increase insurance premiums. Development in the area has exacerbated flood risks. In January 2016, waist-deep flooding occurred in the area yet again, and we were assured that this is a 1 in 100-year flood, despite a similar flood in 1978. In January 2022, areas of Vanessa Avenue, Dunsmore Road flooded again in Highton. Question 1. Will the City of Greater Geelong arrange a public meeting between the Council's flooding engineers, the Planning Department and the residents affected by the Cardinia Creek flooding concerns? Last week, the Victorian Government announced a raft of changes easing COVID-19 restrictions in our state, and Victorian schools returned to face-to-face tuition already. The Victorian Parliament conducts sittings in person and the webcasts of the proceedings. Thank you, Claude, and thank you, Mayor. Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney. I'll throw to our Director of City Services to answer question 1, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll answer question 1, and I believe our Governance Manager will answer question 2. But thank you for your question, Claude. Very well articulated and very well expressed. And certainly we're very happy to meet with affected residents, with our engineers and planners, obviously subject to COVID restrictions, and our coordinated infrastructure planning will be in touch with you in due course to arrange the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Guy Wilson-Brown. Now we have question 2 here. Councillor Maloney, do you wish to read that one out?
Sorry, question 2.
Oh, just part of it at the end of that.
Okay. That's my bad, sorry. Goodness, I've closed that. Hang on, I'll open it up again.
No worries, I can read it out, no stress. So it was written in regards to when will the City of Greater Geelong Council meetings return to in-person events with appropriate measures in place? I'll throw to our Chief Executive, Martin Carter, to answer this one.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. And in line with what you made comment on at the beginning of the meeting, we expect, in line with government announcements, that we'll be bringing in-person meetings back throughout March. So it's very exciting.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, thank you to everybody with regards to that one. I'll now go on to submission number 9, Lewis de Coca, which will ask Councillor Mansfield to read out. Councillor Mansfield, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. So at Council's 1st of February 2022 meeting, in answer to a question on progress with the development of Geelong's significant tree register envisaged in the COG's 2015 Urban Forest Strategy Action Plan, Council responded that the City is in the early planning stages of developing a significant tree register subject to funding in the 2022 to 23 budget. Given that the Council endorsed the action plan in 2015, the lack of progress is disappointing. Many Victorian councils have significant and/or exceptional tree registers in place, including Mildura, Ballarat, Awbor, Indigo, Hepburn, Banyule, Casey, Brimbank, Bundara, Bayside, Yarra, Kingston, Frankston, Glen Ira, Maribyrnong, Moreland, Moonee Valley, Latrobe, Whitehorse and Melbourne. Wyndham City is developing their register. The criteria and processes are fairly standard. The development of a proposal for a significant and/or exceptional tree register for Geelong will therefore not be time or resource intensive. Question 1. What are the early planning stages completed to date, and what is the Council's current timeframe to give effect to its 2015 decision to establish a significant tree register for Geelong? At the Council's 1st of February 2022 meeting, in response to a question regarding the tree management plan for Eastern Beach, the Council responded that there are no specific tree management plans for Eastern Beach. However, tree management is guided by the Central Geelong Waterfront Master Plan and the Eastern Beach Reserve Conservation Management Plan. Furthermore, data on canopy trees is not readily available. However, 13 trees have been planted at Eastern Beach since 2015. The Central Geelong Waterfront Master Plan was not designed as a tree management plan, but it nevertheless sets out 2 principles regarding trees on page 9. 1, maintenance and replacement. Existing trees should be maintained to a high standard, and damaged or sick trees should be replaced on a timely basis. And 2, new plantings. New plantings should be carefully considered to enhance the existing landscape and achieve high levels of amenity and sustainability. The plan advises new tree plantings for specific areas too, e.g. for Fanny Park and Eastern Park foreshore and embankment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mansfield. And for that answer, I'll throw to our Director of City Services, Director Guy Wilson-Brown, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lewis, for your question. With respect to the significant tree register, we have done benchmarking with a number of councils, including those ones that you've mentioned. we've developed a business plan for the development of the tree register, and the implementation and development of that tree register will commence once funding is approved. So that will be subject to the budget process. Assuming funding is approved, implementation could start next financial year. With respect to question 2, sorry. I'll let you read it out first.
How is appropriate effect given to the first principle if data regarding canopy trees that have been lost is not readily available to the council?
Good question. We do, I guess, rely on real-time information and replacing lost trees as soon as they're identified. So we don't necessarily need a tree inventory for that. So as soon as our officers or members of the public identify that a tree needs to be replaced, it is recorded and the tree is replaced in the next available planting season.
And question 3 is, since 2012, how many trees were planted in furtherance of the new tree planting strategy envisaged in the master plan, and what percentage do they represent of the total tree stock of the area covered by the plan?
Yeah, thank you again for the question. To date, 83 trees have been planted in the area identified by the Central Geelong Waterfront Master Plan, and this constitutes 7% of the total tree stock covered by that particular plan. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Mayor Sullivan.
And Deputy Mayor, if I can add, this subject of a significant tree register and more broadly the urban tree canopy remains a hot topic of discussion for a number of councillors in our environment portfolio meeting and our climate change portfolio meetings. So we appreciate all the input that you are having. We're definitely raising this issue regularly and in discussions about it. So yes, just wanted to point that out, that it is this feedback is being heard.
Well noted. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. And thank you once more to all the submitters this evening and to councillors and officers and their assistants. That concludes question time for this meeting. I will now move into petitions. And councillors, I'm aware that there is a petition to be tabled this evening.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, I have a petition that I'd like to table. So it's in line with some of the questioning, I guess. It's from the Geelong Miniature Railway and the Lions Club of Nor Lane. And I just a couple of comments. This petition has been in draft for some time, and they've been gathering significant signatures for some time as well. The landscape might have changed slightly since they first started gathering the signatures, but nonetheless, the support for this project is significant, to say the least. And so the petition is to allow the Geelong Miniature Railway and the Lions Club of Nor Lane to build a 7.25 and 5-inch miniature railway on Sutcliffe Reserve in Plantation Road. And we understand that there's further consideration being given to this, but I have been on council for some 11 years and I've presented quite a number of petitions, but never one as thick or with as many signatures as I have here. I would suggest, and I've not counted them, but there would be some 2,000 signatures here, predominantly from the Geelong region, predominantly from Corio and Nor Lane, and I'll talk to the notice of motion later, but there is also over 100 letters of support, which I'll be tabling as well. So that's the petition.
Thank you very much, Councillor Contell. Councillors, are there any other petitions to be tabled? If not, we'll move into Section B, reports for the evening. Now, the first item on the agenda, item 1, is delivering social housing on council-owned land. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mansfield, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. Councillor Grisbeck. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. So this item, in a lot of ways, is really exciting. This is a significant step forward in our work in the social housing space as a council. And it really couldn't come at a better time when you look at what's going on with housing stress in our region. So when our social housing plan was first developed, the data showed that in 2016, 11% of households in Greater Geelong were experiencing housing stress. So that's when they spent at least 30% of their income on housing. We know that in 2019, so pre-pandemic, we needed 7,200 social housing dwellings, with less than half of that currently existing. So huge need even at that time. Since then, although we haven't had a lot of the same data recollected, we've got other measures that have shown that housing affordability has continued to worsen. And I'm sure everyone here and everyone listening tonight is aware of the extra pressure that has been created in that housing market throughout the pandemic. We know that rental availability and affordability, let alone the affordability of houses to buy, has skyrocketed, and particularly in our region. We know from the latest rental affordability index that essentially the whole municipality, bar one little pocket, is moderately to severely unaffordable when it comes to rental prices. Last year, there was a 60% increase in young people experiencing homelessness in our region. And we did our own impact analysis of COVID-19 showing housing stress and homelessness has been significantly exacerbated for women, and older women are the fastest growing demographic experiencing homelessness. So this is where the rubber really starts hitting the road for COG when it comes to social housing. As we often do, we've set up some great foundations with plans, strategies. We've got a fantastic advisory group. Last week, we held a forum regarding housing options for women and children in Greater Geelong. We had over 70 invitees attend that. But for all the talk, the bottom line, including at this forum, was clear. We need all levels of government to make the right to housing for everyone a priority. And we need to start delivering actual housing. There's lots of talk, lots of plans, lots of strategies, but we need houses being built. So we've reached a stage as a council where we can start working on that delivery part. We don't have the same levers as other levels of government, but one thing that we've been repeatedly told by experts in the field and from the social housing sector is that what we can provide is land. Council has responded to this by undertaking a land audit. This has taken several years. We've worked in partnership with expert advisors and identified 3 parcels of land that would be appropriate for social housing developments, given their proximity to services, the potential alternative uses of the space, and their development potential for housing. Under the Local Government Act, and moreover, just consistent with the views of this council and how we, I think, like to operate, before we transfer any land to our housing trust for social housing, we really want to engage the community to understand how we can do this well. Some have cautioned that this is a high-risk approach because there's a lot of stigma around social housing. However, I actually see this as a critical opportunity to better understand the local views and concerns, as well as to bust myths, dispel any stigma, and get community ideas around this. We want the social housing developments to be part of the community and the residents, and these are residents who are members of our community, just like anyone else. We want everyone to feel included. So it's really disheartening in the light of all of this work that we're doing, that the state government have announced a few measures that may create some disincentive for councils to get involved in social housing in the long run. One of the things that's been announced is that in Geelong, social housing properties will be exempt from rates. And while I understand why this might be in principle, the problem is that there's no compensation for councils. So this will mean that money comes out of potentially delivering services for the community. It might, we'll likely have to pass that on to the rest of the rate base, but that's hard because of rate capping, and there's all sorts of other issues around that. So really disappointing that this has been done without consultation and may work against some of the stuff that we're trying to get done in this space. I really hope that the government is open to some more discussion around this, and I'm sure we'll be doing some more advocacy on this. There are a number of other changes that are coming, being proposed as well around the social housing levy and windfall gains tax, and how that may impact on housing affordability in our region, while the dividends of that going back into the state government won't necessarily be spent on our community. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of policy decisions taking place that may I guess we have some concerns about and we need to do some advocacy about. But this right here is an opportunity for us to, do our part as a local government to hopefully work in partnership with other levels of government to deliver housing for people who need it. So I don't believe the state government changes should be a reason for councillors not to support this next step towards delivering housing. I think it's really important we remember why we got into this space in the first place and focus on delivering housing because it's a key contributor to the health and wellbeing of our residents. And I'll leave it to other councillors to make comment on this one.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I jumped the gun. I'm going to reserve my right so that I can come in at the end. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak on this topic? Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor and Acting Mayor Trent Sullivan at the present time. He's doing a fantastic job. Look, it's actually been my pleasure to be the deputy to Councillor Mansfield on this portfolio. Council has made a commitment that we will try and create 100 social houses throughout the city of Greater Geelong. And tonight is an important step in that process. As Sarah said, we've worked extremely hard with our advisory committee that's been established. We've worked extremely hard with the officers who have been really supportive of this significant change for local government. Geelong has no history of participating in social housing, and there isn't a blueprint or model that we can actually follow. So what we are doing has been groundbreaking for the City of Greater Geelong, and there's only a few other local councils throughout the state of Victoria who are participating in the provision of social housing. And what's exciting about tonight is that we actually did look at a significant number of parcels of land, and in fact, there may be more that becomes available to assist our strategic commitment of creating 100 homes, social housing homes in Geelong. But tonight, we're putting up 3 site locations which will have the capacity for multiple social housings on those parcels of land. And it is appropriate that we now consult with the community, especially those that are living next to these site locations, to get a genuine feel about what their belief is about the provision of social housing. I can only speak for myself. I was actually raised in a housing commission house, and that house is still owned by our family in Corio. And without the security of that roof that was given over my family in the early 70s until I departed that house when I turned 18, social housing played a significant capacity in my life to be the person that I am today. And if I can give one other person an opportunity that I've received from having social housing, you can be a councillor of the City of Greater Geelong in the future. And it is extremely important. And what the work that we've done over the last 3 to 4 years has reminded us how important it is to have a roof over one's head. And I congratulate the city for the work that it's doing. And I look forward to the community's feedback. We are sharing where this land is being proposed. There's one in Corio, there's one in Belmont, and there's one in Belpost Hill. But there are multiple other site locations that we may consider in the future as well, too, as a council. And it's a major financial commitment. This is a $3.6 million financial commitment from the city towards social housing. And so for anyone saying the council's not doing anything about social housing, just look at tonight's report and look at the significant commitments that this council group is making towards the endeavours of providing a roof over people's head that don't have roofs over their head.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Eddie Quintel, please.
Yes, I'll keep mine short. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think it's very positive that we're taking this initiative, and I support the comments from the 2 previous councillors. The only thing I'd like to reiterate, I guess, to a certain point and make a point on is that we need to ensure that if we're going to engage with the community on this, then it's genuine engagement. And as Councillor Mansfield has suggested, everyone is part of the community. We need to make sure this is a positive outcome, and for that to occur, everyone has to be on the journey. Again, Councillor Aitken alluded to it. We shouldn't be just putting things in the newspaper. There's many ways of informing people and communicating and engaging with people. This one here particularly will need some physical intervention, and we'll need to make sure that we letterbox and door knock those residents that are in and around this, because for this to be accepted and for it to be truly a community initiative that is well accepted by the broader community, then people need to know what is occurring. And they shouldn't be finding out once the first sod is turned on the block of land. So it's my only counsel, pardon the pun, is that we engage broadly, that we engage on a personal level, and that we work through the emotions and challenges and opportunities that this brings.
Thank you very much, Councillor Quintel. Well said. Any other councillors? If not, I'll throw to Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, I wanted to speak to support this particular item before council. It is supported in terms of the engagement. I think we have worked hard about how we can support the social housing across the municipality, and this is the way that we have decided to go in terms of a trust and work with a housing trust, a housing association. I'm keen to hear the community's views on these particular pieces of land. And also, as Councillor Aiken had said, there are possibly others in the future that we will engage on again in the future. My concern comes with, as Councillor Mansfield has said, with the recent announcements from state government around the exemption from rates that the state government will no longer be paying on these particular social housing sites. The legislation is still before the Parliament. We, at the point where we say, okay, do we start to invest in our own social housing, which we have decided to do, or do we actually think about what does it mean to the City of Greater Geelong in relation to the cost that it's going to incur for this cost shifting from state government through to the local government? There has been limited consultation. We have seen an increase in the social housing footprint itself. The government has announced many more houses. The big build is coming. And so therefore, when you think about what that will cost the City of Greater Geelong in the loss of rate revenue, we will still have to supply services to these particular properties. They are still members of our community. They will still need access to maternal child health. They will still need access to the pools, to the gyms, to the sporting facilities. That nothing changes in the sense of what the services that they are provided, but in fact, it increases the services they are provided with the new homes being built, which I agree with in terms of how we help to accommodate the affordable housing. But it is the no compensation from the state government. So they're basically saying that we are going to cost shift this amount of money through to councils without any consultation as such. So I think City is committed to this part of the social housing, and I'm committed to hearing the views of the community. What I would like to see by the time we've received that feedback, we should have some clearer views about what the state government is intending to do. And therefore we have a decision to make as to, what's the extent of council's contribution both to this and also what's the loss of revenue that we're going to be slammed with, in my view, from the state government. So I think as a sector, you have Melbourne, you have Bendigo, you have Ballarat, you have, places like the City of Hume that have large areas of social housing. They're going to be losing millions and millions of dollars of revenue and yet still be provided to spend the same amount of services to that community, if not more. I'm a bit hesitant as to how we move forward with social housing, but I really appreciate this report that will go out to the community to hear their views.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grisbeck, and I'll throw to Councillor Mansfield to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you to my fellow councillors for your comments. I think some really important points raised by all of you. I think, the key message of this is something that's going out for community consultation. I'd really encourage relevant ward councillors to ensure, to engage. I know you all do a great job at engaging with your communities, but this will be an issue that you will probably get some feedback about. And we've got, different wards affected by this. So keep an ear out for that and get involved if you can. Because as has been said, this is about trying to get a great outcome for everyone. We want to deliver on our commitments to housing. We want to get some more houses built. We've got thousands. A few years ago we had a shortage of over 3,000 houses. We're expected to have a shortage of way more than that over the next 20 to 30 years. So this is a small contribution, but it's meaningful, and we have an opportunity to make a difference. But it will be hard to get that volume of housing built if we can't bring the community along the journey with us. Social housing is, I think people sometimes have a certain image of what social housing looks like in their minds, and I think this is a great opportunity to try and shift some of those views. There's a lot of social housing around the community that you drive past every day and wouldn't know any different. And, as I said before, these are members of our community. They're the people who are all around us every day. They're members of our family. They're our friends. They're our communities. And everyone deserves to have a roof over their heads. You cannot deal with anything else going on in your life without safe and secure housing. It's a human right. And I'm really proud that as a council, we're starting to make some inroads in this area.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mansfield. And with that, I'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 2, we have the Draft Social Equity Framework 2022 to 25. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mansfield, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Mason. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. So on a similar theme, this is another item for community consultation. This is our Draft Social Equity Framework. So social equity, I guess, is what does that even mean? From my view, that's about addressing unfair and avoidable differences among population groups, and that's something we see a lot of in our city. We've got stark disparities in socioeconomic status. We've got some of the poorest suburbs in the state that experience long-term intergenerational and structural disadvantage. We've got many groups who feel isolated or discriminated against through various barriers and attitudes, and we have significant health disparities across different population groups. So we have some significant issues around social equity, and we've done a lot of work over the years in identifying these issues through a whole lot of different studies and other strategies and plans. Most recently, we did work through our Vital Communities project to really study, what the drivers of social inequity are. And so it's, we've done a really good job of identifying social inequity where it exists. However, addressing those drivers of inequity and actually achieving, an improvement in equity and social outcomes, in reality, that's where it's challenging. And it involves the decisions that we make about what are our priorities as a council, how do we distribute resources, how do we engage with the community in a meaningful way that includes everyone. So, and the other challenge around equity is it means different things to different people in different circumstances. So I think that's really well highlighted in this draft document. There was a lot of input to this draft framework from our advisory committee members. They are representatives of the community across, we have a whole range of different advisory committees. And what they've done is, come up with what they see as the enablers of equity. They've identified them as fairness, access, voice, participation, inclusion, and empowerment. I think they're really relevant to a lot of the work that we do as a council in different ways. So the idea of this framework is that it'll more completely embed these concepts and enablers of equity into how we do business. So, it outlines that it starts with the leadership, including us as councillors, starting to get these ideas into our dialogue and into the way we think about the decisions that are coming before us, but also through our partnerships with other organisations, with contractors, and also in our reporting. So I'm really supportive of this framework in principle. I will be watching with interest to see how well these concepts get incorporated in our decisions in reality and actually translate into some meaningful outcomes. We are really good as a council at developing frameworks and strategies, and we've got some brilliant work that on paper, but how all these frameworks are going to work together and strategies are going to work together with the aim of them being embedded across the whole of council. I think there is a risk that some of these strategies get prioritised over others, or worse, they could end up remaining siloed in their department of origin. But I do believe that the aims of the different strategies key strategies we're developing and frameworks as an organisation, they can be complementary. They should be complementary. So in an ideal world, we'll see them all working together and reinforcing each other and start to deliver some positive changes for our community. So I am supportive of the work that's gone into this framework. I'm really interested to hear some community feedback about this, as always. I'd encourage everyone who's interested to provide that feedback, and I'll leave it to my fellow councillors to make their comments and observations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mansfield. I'll now through to Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mansfield, so well expressed. Last Friday, Councillors Mansfield, Contell and myself attended and supported the First Nations Platform Arts exhibition titled Still Here Now, where deep time and current time were fused to explain ongoing social justice needs. That was fantastic work. And on Sunday, Councillor Mansfield and I attended the Pride Cup Community Ashes series, which exemplified the ongoing need for elimination of homophobia in sport. And despite the great progress which has been made, there's still more work to be done. So good on them for making this call. So there are many other examples of community groups working hard towards social equity, and we should help them all as much as we can. And there are increasing numbers of people in our region who are not getting a fair go, sometimes from the beginning of their lives and through no fault of their own. Now, this social equity framework builds on reference documents such as the 1948 UN Declaration of Human Rights, the 2005 UN Declaration on Cultural Diversity, and many other treaties and laws on disability, race, age, culture, and gender. And as Councillor Mansfield said before, it explains concepts of equality, equity, justice, inclusion, and diversity, where it also explains, repeating, the basic enablers to social equity, which are fairness, access, voice, participation, inclusion, and empowerment. All of these are applied to policy design and implementation, so that we will always align them with community needs and with minority groups who should never be overlooked. And so there are many minority groups, and they don't always just stand alone, but they lie within an intricate web of other needs. For example, a disabled person may well have other challenges such as ethnic origin, socio-economic situation, age, and geographical location. Now, I commend the work done by the officers on this excellent document, which has received helpful input from so many stakeholder groups. And as Councillor Mansfield said, I also expect it will improve further after receiving feedback from a round of community consultation, and especially from the minority groups who understand their issues firsthand. So I really do hope the minority groups have another chance at inputs here. So I call on all of us to review and see how we may improve this policy framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Acting Mayor Trent Sullivan. This actually is a really important piece for the council and does deserve most of us to actually understand it and also to talk about it as well too. And the best way that I can try to communicate it to my community is by saying that we are a clever and creative community. That's our vision that we have as the City of Greater Geelong. But something that this council group has identified is that there's a missing element in that vision, and that's a caring community. And what this particular policy document does, it actually says ultimately the council should be our community should be a clever, it should be a creative, and it should be a caring community. And what this policy document tries to attempt to do is introduce caring into our decision-making frameworks and our processes that we have within the City of Greater Geelong. And the transition to becoming a caring community is by having a understanding of the social equity that is required throughout our community. And how are we actually going to care in our community? Well, a good example is that once this document is adopted by the council, it will flow into our procurement policy that we have in the City of Greater Geelong. And what that procurement policy will do, it will actually look at how are we purchasing our goods and services that are helping people from a non-English speaking background? How are we purchasing and entering into tenders to assist employment opportunities for people with disabilities? How are we spending our $100 million capital works each year to address the issue about gender equality and greater participation of female in sports that are dominated by males? It will also give us the capacity to target employment opportunities for people who are longer term unemployed or young people who have never experienced the opportunity of employment. That's why this policy document is important for the council, because it's introducing a third pillar in terms of our vision of a council. And I'm very excited that we will become known as a council that is clever, creative, and very importantly, caring community. And I encourage all councillors to participate in any opportunity they can with the social equity framework and its adoption, and listen to our advisor groups that have given us tremendous feedback about how council is trying to engage in this document, and challenge the officers to make sure that they are adhering to our requirement to be a caring community in every decision that they actually do make. So this is a really important policy and framework piece for the council, and I thank everybody who's been involved in it thus far. And I'm really excited about where this will actually shift this council in terms of what is its priorities and its vision and focus for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Much appreciated. Any other councillors wish to comment? Councillor Maloney, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. I just wanted to make mention of this incredible body of work, especially the case studies right at the end. The whole appendices, I had a massive nerd out about it. Really thrilling data. It really opens your eyes as to why we need this type of framework and why we need these interconnecting plans, and how this informs our strategy. And you learn something about how Geelong exists as different from other regions. We're very unique, and this has really highlighted to me how special we are. I mean, I've always got an incredible bias towards our pretty city, but really the people that reside here and want to thrive here, there's some incredible information being compiled into this. So I really just wanted to flag that, because I found them incredibly informing for me to open my eyes to different parts of Geelong, different walks of life I didn't know before. So it's a really great document, and especially the appendix case studies at the end. Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, Councillor Mansfield to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you to my fellow councillors for your comments on this one. I agree. There is so much brilliant work that has gone into this framework, and I think Councillor Aitken outlined the hopes that he has for what this document will mean for our community, but at the end of the day, that will depend on it being meaningfully integrated into our work and our processes throughout the organisation, the thinking in the organisation. This framework will help, but it needs to, it will need leadership to do that. And ultimately, a lot of the decisions come back to us as councillors. We make a lot of the decisions and we set the strategic direction as well. And so it's important that we, if this is something that after community consultation, we decide we want to adopt, we need to walk the walk with it as well, and be, keep thinking about all the different ways that, we can be addressing social equity in our region through all of the work that we do as a council.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Now I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Lovely. All right. We're on to amendment number 3 now. Amendment C422GGEE, 1216 Kingsmead Street, Warren Ponds, Permanent Heritage Overlay, consideration of panel report and adoption. Can I please have a mover for this? Councillor Nelson, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Maloney. Thank you. Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This one's been bubbling along for a few years now, so I won't talk too much about it. The recommendation is that Council adopt the amendment to 12 to 14 Kingsmead Street, Warm Ponds, Permanent Heritage Overlay in the form of outlined on attachment 2 of the report. The house in question has been occupied by the Bourne family for about 130 years. I know the family reasonably well, being from that area. My family has a property up there, so they really want to keep the house in its original condition and see it brought back to life, rather than let it go into disrepute, which is what it's currently doing now. It's really falling apart, so it needs someone to bring it back to its former glory, and I think they found someone, which is great news. So hopefully the residents will see this home the way it was 140 odd years ago, which is great. So this report recommends that Council submit the amendment to the Minister for Planning for approval. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Nelson. This is in my neck of the woods as well, and it's certainly wonderful to see this amendment as part of a bigger picture, which is us putting our money where our mouth is, or our policy where it is, and talking about restoring and maintaining the beautiful heritage that really increases the character in our suburbs. We've just heard a lot about tree canopies and the appearance of our neighbourhood character, and this is something that will add value to that. And also there are a number of written submissions from people coming in with respect to that on public exhibitions. So it's really great to see the community getting involved and also wanting to take care of heritage overlay buildings as well. Nothing further.
Absolutely, thank you. Councillor Harwood, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of comments on this this property. It's been quite controversial in a number of ways. One, obviously, its historical value and its significance to the area. But it is in a complete state of dereliction. Only way you could probably describe it. And that is an unfortunate scenario we find ourselves in. So we're now looking to, we've had amending the Geelong planning scheme to actually try and create a process where this property can be I guess, resurrected literally from the ground up, because if anyone's had a chance to actually have a look around it, it is as derelict as you could probably find. A house is actually still standing. I think I said a while ago, I'm surprised it survived the recent high winds and rain that we had. But be that as it may, it's going to be almost prohibitive in some aspects to potentially develop this property. It's a huge opportunity for some infill in a busy area. So I guess I speak with caution about what may occur up there, and if the expectation is to be returned to its former glory, I would just caution that may be well beyond the building's capacity and even the most ardent developer to do. So I think there'll need to be some concessions made along the way, because a great property it was, but to return, I think, is going to be a task beyond most. But we'll see what comes. But I just find it interesting that we've perhaps missed an opportunity up there, but we'll see what the future brings. So I'll support the recommendation, but with some reluctance and caution.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors wish to speak on this issue? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Nelson to close. Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank all councillors for their support on this, and yes, Councillor Harwood's right. I would certainly wouldn't step on the veranda there to even enter the house. I would be very, very concerned. It is in a state of disrepair. One thing for noting is that one of the trees is going to be kept. There is a massive old Norfolk Island pine, obviously not indigenous to the area, because I don't think it's Norfolk Island up there, but that tree is going to be kept as well. So here's one for the tree canopy fans, that tree will be kept. Nothing further, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nelson. With that, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item number 4, Drysdale Landfill Post-Closure Landscape Plan, post-consultation. Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation? Councillor Mason, and I'm happy to second this one. However, I feel there may be an amendment. Councillor Aiken? You're on mute, Councillor Aiken.
I'd like to move in addition to the recommendation, if the mover and seconder are happy to accept that, and that is a third item be added, that council commits to consult with all members of the community if any changes are proposed to the management of the stormwater dam and discharge management plans in the future. I'm happy to say that slower again if the mover and seconder wish to hear that again.
I'm happy with that.
Happy with it, but we need a seconder for that one. Is there a seconder present? Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. Yep, with that, your amendment has been moved and seconded. You're happy to speak to the amendment, Councillor Aiken?
Look, I am, Mr. Acting Mayor. Look, this is actually a really good and unique project for the City of Greater Geelong. This is our last landfill site that we have in the City of Greater Geelong. And this is actually a proposed plan for what to do with the Drysdale landfill site in 8 years' time when it is proposed to close. The landscape plan actually did have significant consultation with immediate landowners and also those people that have an interest in the environment and rejuvenation associated with landfill sites. The plan before us tonight actually shows you what community consultation and engagement can do, because the three plans that we went out with are not what we're actually adopting tonight. The plan that we are adopting tonight is actually a hybrid of those plans. And what we are doing is we are supporting significant improvement of the environment going forward associated with the landscape plan. We are supporting community activity in the future on that site location, because we understand open space and green open space in the future is actually something that the community is demanding more and more of. And we also are harmonising that landscape plan with the neighbouring community, which essentially at this point in time, the neighbouring community is predominantly farm usage, especially downstream of the landfill site. And it is appropriate that we adopt the position tonight that we are in terms of our proposed landscape plan, but we also add item 3, which is a commitment to consult if there are any changes associated with the stormwater dam and the discharge management plans in the future. We are adopting this plan. We are locking it away. Financially, we have the funds available to undertake the proposed $9.1 million worth of works associated with the remediation plan. And I was encouraged with the meeting that we had recently as the council group about this plan, that it will set a benchmark for the City of Greater Geelong in terms of rejuvenation of landfill sites. And it may encourage us to actually have a look at the Corio landfill site and actually see what we can do there to adopt some of the principles that we are putting in place for Drysdale. And I think that's very exciting for the Northern Suburbs community, that we will possibly look at the Corio landfill site to see what lessons have been learned through this consultation process associated with Drysdale. The amendment is ultimately saying that we commit to continued community consultation if we do change our plans associated with stormwater and the discharge of that water in the river that currently flows out of the Drysdale area landfill. And as a consequence, it enshrines that in 10 years' time, even if officers do change, there is a motion on the books that makes it quite clear that it was the intent of this council that if there are any changes to the plan, that we actually do consult with the community and all members of the community that have an interest in this project, not just those that are immediately abutting the landfill site. And I'll now pass over to other councillors to have a say on this important project. And I know Councillor Mason has been strongly involved in the development of this landscape plan, and I think that's his personal beliefs about trying to work with the whole community is reflected with the conservation plan that we're proposing tonight, in that it manages a balance between community access, environmental protection, and also provides something that the whole of the Ballerine community can be proud of once the landfill site is closed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rakin. Councillor Grisbeck, do you wish to comment as seconder?
Nothing further, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grisbeck. I'll now open up to the floor to speak on this amendment. If this amendment passes, it becomes a substantive motion and we vote and speak on it again. If not, then we go back to what is still the original recommendation. Does anybody wish to speak to the amendment? No? With that, I'll give Councillor Rakin, I actually apologise, Councillor Rakin, there's no right of reply from the amendment. There's no way spoken against it. So I'll put to the vote to create this amendment, or for this amendment to become a substantive motion. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Councillor Aiken, your amendment has become the substantive motion. You now have the right to speak to it again as mover. You are on mute.
Trent, look, I probably don't need to speak on it again because I have already spoken on the amendment. So thank you for that opportunity, but I think there's nothing further for me to say, and I do welcome other councillors and in particular Councillor Mason to actually make comment on this issue now.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Grisbeck, do you wish to speak as seconder?
Nothing further, Councillor Sullivan, thank you.
All right, it's open to the floor then. Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Mason, please.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. As the original mover of this motion, I really appreciate the amendment, and certainly I'm sure there will be some other changes as the years go on, and I'm sure there will be further consultation about access for shared trails and maybe the future use of Founds Road and Old St Leonard's Road, how they connect Drysdale and St Leonard's with Becks Road, and it'll all influence this particular landscape. But look, there's been huge community interest in this over the years, and the Drysdale landfill and its rehabilitation really has reached an important and exciting phase now. And it's a little bit ironical because as we try to minimise landfill, the effect has been to lengthen the facility life. So at current rates, it's scheduled to close in 8 years when the remaining active cells will then be closed. So it's timely that we've got this plan where parts of it can already be implemented, and we all know the timeframes and where we're going. And out of this, there's been out for a lot of consultation, as Councillor Aitken said, where 3 options really were offered, and we've picked out the best of the 3 options. Although there was significant support for the 3 options, each option, and we've integrated the best features of each option while being very mindful of maintaining high levels of community access and environmental values. We also have had time to source extra funding. We will have extra time to source extra funding while we already have built into it the proposal where the rehabilitation component to gate fees. So the delivery of this plan will also generate an estimated $7.91 million from clean filling of the former quarry site. This significantly offsets the $9.123 million estimated total rehabilitation cost. The implementation of the landscape plan will include creek restoration, improve stormwater quality across the site, and create significant natural grassy woodlands habitats. And the additional grassy woodlands indigenous plantings will absorb carbon dioxide, offsetting climate change, while enhancing the natural ecosystem, and recognises that the body of water in the old quarry is not an original or high quality wildlife habitat. This plan also incorporates eliminating the hazard of sheer quarry walls, maintaining mesh fencing, restriction of rabbits, feral animals, leachate and gas management systems will be maintained. And Indigenous vegetation along FC Mason Creek will be enhanced, and an access road will be maintained to Founds Road. So this is a large site of 61 hectares total, and therefore offers many opportunities for accessible facilities. Facilities such as extensive open parkland, seating, viewing stations, over 2 kilometres walking and cycling tracks, equestrian and dog off-lead areas, and cycling and bridle access from Becks Road. This is really an exciting project which people have been waiting for a long time, and it'll be a boon to the community's access to diverse outdoor facilities and to the natural environment. So I endorse the plan and am grateful for this amendment as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Contel, please.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, I won't go into all the intricacies. I look at it from another aspect as well. This site has served the community for well over 4 decades, serving a very important task in terms of its services and landfill and the like. What I also find really positive about this project is that when this site comes to end of life, there is another excellent project that will continue then to serve the community for different purposes. And that's what sustainability is all about. And that's what caring for our environment is all about, is once we've used the resources, is putting them back to what they were before, or perhaps in an even better state. What it also does, and Councillor Mason referred to the $9 million worth of investment that's required, offset by the close to $8 million in clean landfill that will be generated from the site, is that it creates significant employment opportunities for a whole range of experts, trades, contractors, and City of Greater Geelong employees alike. We've said in here that the project will take approximately 6 years. So, there's a lot of upsides in this, and it certainly makes you think about, the different types of initiatives that we have got going on in our region and also in the country, and need to be very careful that we don't just talk negatively about things such as these types of sites, because they can be renewed, and with the right plan and the right efforts, the land actually gets returned back to the community in an even better state with amazing facilities for generations to come. So I think this is a great outcome.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Contel. Any councillors wish to comment? Councillor Maloney, please.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. I just wanted to reiterate the comments of previous councillors, but everything's pretty much been said, except for I would love to thank the Ballerine Landcare Group and the Geelong Environmental Council for their extended responses, and for everyone who chimed in with their thoughts on this, because it's really great to get community involvement and direction. And I'm loving the flavour of community engagement. Since my time on council, I've learnt a lot, and it seems that part of this is about education, especially with environmental restoration. We've seen a lot of degradation, old school farmers ripping out trees willy-nilly and treating native species that feed bird life and all sorts of wonderful flora and fauna, not being as respectful as we have been or we should be to the environment. So I think that this is a key for a message for other councils to reverberate what we do, that it's going to be the next best thing to go to the tip, hang out at the Landsville. It's going to be a weird thing to do, but I'm looking forward to that, because not only is it being restored with the environment, preventing leachates from running into the nearby creek, and really giving, the phytocat was really innovative in itself, but also promoting active hanging out in nature, being amongst nature and being about it, riding your bike. I love the different features that this is going to encapsulate, and I hope that this promotes some of our other strategies as well with respect to well-being and hopefully improves the community life. And maybe I might have to scoot down there more often than I currently do. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Look, just wanted to reiterate what Councillor Maloney has said about the community engagement aspect of this, and I really hope that all of those involved are satisfied with this outcome. It really, it seems that the officers have done a really good job of listening to all that feedback and incorporating the different aspects of it, balancing different views in this final plan, and the as has been mentioned by Councillor Mason, work should start on the remediation shortly. So this isn't just a design that'll sit on the shelf till the end of the life of the landfill, because there's always a risk with these things that it may not, we've done all this work and the literal and metaphorical landscape will be different at that stage. This is something that we can get going on straight away. So really thank all those who are involved, and I look forward to hopefully a good outcome all round on this one.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mansfield. The other councillors wish to make comment? I will just add myself that I'm quite pleased with the hybrid outcome of this model being put forward. We went up to the community with a few different options, which all had their different inclusions and benefits towards them. But due to the community consultation, to reach a model which provides both open active land, reforestation, the rehabilitation of this land, to have it be somewhat cost effective with the infill, I'm very, very proud of this outcome. I think that I keep saying it, but it's odd to say that a tip is close to the hearts of everybody, but especially in the Ballerine community. But it's a resource that we've all used, something we've all taken advantage of, and now to see that we have a plan to rehabilitate it in a very beneficial way, active, healthy, not only for ourselves, but for the earth itself, is incredibly, it's an incredible outcome. I will just say myself that since this is an area that will have open access to community, walking, bike riding areas and whatnot, the next stage is really to make sure that it is accessible to the community. not just for people who like to drive out there with the bikes on the back and a bike rack, but for kids, teenagers, all out there for good, wholesome fun, to ride up there on trails and whatnot. So we have to make accessibility safe for community members as well, because this is on a major road, which is having increasingly high volumes of traffic with developments down the other ends of it. So this is a fantastic outcome. It's going to be great for the community. Just going to make sure that the community can have a right of access to it as well. And but with that, I'm happy to, if nobody else wishes to speak, I will throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Acting and Mayor and Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Just thank all the councillors for their contributions towards this project, and it's probably the most significant rejuvenation of our environment that we'll probably undertake in the City of Greater Geelong.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item number 5, Elco Basin and Drainage Channel Special Rates and Charge Scheme 322 finalisation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Aiken, thank you. Councillor Grisbeck, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is the Elco Basin, as you've said, the Elco Basin Drainage Special Rates and Charges Scheme. It was declared on the 10th of May 2016 by the administrators of the City of Greater Geelong at the time. This is the area in the GREP, the industrial estate, mostly affected off Heels Road. All of the works were completed over the past 6 years. There was a slight increase to the cost over that period of time. It was a 1% increase, which the City of Greater Geelong has increased their contribution to cover it. It didn't actually charge any of the owners any additional amounts other than what was levied in the special charge scheme. This is now finalising the special charge scheme. It is now being done and dusted. It's just basically a formality. I'll leave it to Councillor Aiken to give you some further update on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Deputy Sullivan. Looks actually quite fascinating. This project has actually got a value of $10.6 million in terms of a special rates and charges scheme. The Ocean Grove primary footpath network's actually only $6.5 million worth. So putting it into perspective, this is actually a really big piece of engineering work and infrastructure that the city's been involved in, and the property owners have actually contributed 5.9 million of the 10.6, and the council has funded the remainder. So what is it? Well, essentially it's drainage works out in the group area, and I don't think people really appreciate how big it really is in terms of the grip. But when you look at this particular scheme and the cost of it, you understand it is a significant parcel of land. And to those councillors that have an interest in this issue, a side benefit of this project is that it actually will significantly reduce the flooding that occurs out at the GRIP area. And it's also created a community area where you can view bird life, wildlife and other plant species, which is quite a good benefit that's actually come from this project that was driven by engineering needs to actually create that community benefit associated with the Elco drain basin as well too. And it's good to see Clifford joining us for a council meeting tonight. That's Councillor Sullivan's son. So it's lovely that we've got that participation in local government that we have in Geelong. But this is important. It's fantastic that it's come to a conclusion. And my understanding is that all of the people who were affected by the scheme are supportive of the works that have been undertaken, and also the cost apportionment system that the council adopted in terms of the Elco Basin. So congratulations to all that were involved over the last 5 years, well, nearly 6 years if we headed to May, with this particular project.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken, for your mostly correct comments. I'll throw it to the floor to anybody else who wishes to speak on this issue. Nobody else wishes to comment. I'll throw back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There is also the opportunity that there is a shared path going through the drainage basin as well, which will hopefully at one point link City of Greater Geelong, the CBD of Geelong, I should say, through to the You Yangs. It is just one part of the shared trail network through to the northern parts of Geelong. So it's a win-win in our books, Deputy Mayor.
Excellent, thank you. And with that, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Cool. All those against? Carried. All right. Now we have item 6, the Ocean Grove Principal Pedestrian Network, proposed footpath construction, special charge scheme 354 declaration. Do I have a mover? Councillor Aiken, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Maloney, thank you. However, I do believe we have an amendment. Is that correct? Councillor Mason, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Harwood, thank you. Councillor Mason, would you like to briefly say what your amendment is before we speak to it? You're on mute, Councillor Mason.
Sorry about that. Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor, it's fundamentally to change the community contribution from 50% to 35% and correspondingly increase the council contribution to 65%.
Thank you. And you've already been seconded, so you're now welcome now to speak to the motion. Or the amendment, sorry. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This was deferred in September last year so councillors could give further careful consideration to it. Clearly, this has really been a difficult issue for all. It's been going on for over 10 years and we don't really want this to continue. We've got to resolve this issue. The latest delay was, though, rather fortuitous, and we did foresee a revision in a special charges scheme policy. It was adopted in December last year, where the council would then take a 65% community benefit community benefit contribution, reducing the community component to 35%. This is a great advantage to the Ocean Grove community and reduces the cost over 5 years to $333.87 from the original $476. So it was worth the wait. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, the Ocean Grove Town Centre Urban Design Framework was adopted by Council in 2014 and recommended that a principal pedestrian network be developed connecting activity centres, sport facilities and schools. Mr. Deputy Mayor, Old Ocean Grove 2 generations ago was typified by simple rustic houses nestled amongst trees connected with winding access bush tracks. Ocean Grove now has been defined as a growth area and Old Ocean Grove has been left with the legacy of higher density living and infrastructure unfunded by developers and purchasers with very limited footpath connectivity. This makes this proposal unusual and the precinct approach is why we've adopted that and is why there's been so much extensive and lengthy community consultation. The total cost of the scheme will be approximately $6 million and the total levies to designated ratepayers in Old Ocean Grove will now be approximately $2 million. A total of 24.3 kilometres of footpaths will be delivered, where these ratepayer contributions only cover a basic 1.5 metre footpath. And there are some high-level use sections where there will be a 2.5 metre wide footpath, and this will always be covered by the city. Also, there are about 9,914 rateable properties in Old Ocean Grove. 6,357 of these are included in the special rates and charges scheme. So, in summary, a majority of ratepayers have consistently supported the need for the footpaths, a priority footpath network, and most recently, that all designated ratepayers should contribute equally. Of course, this amendment now ensures only 35% contribution to a basic 1.5 metre footpath, while the city still adopts the responsibility of completely funding any increase in width in the high use areas. We did have quite a number of objections, 57, and they were taken care of through a submission review panel last year, and action was taken to eliminate the identified problems. The most prominent were ratepayers who had previously paid a special rates and charges scheme are now exempt, and hardship provisions will be assured, including possible deferral of payments over 5 years. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, if we have to go back to the drawing board, it will take years of consultation and redesign before we can consider another special rates and charges scheme. There is a large backlog of footpaths throughout the municipality which need to be constructed. Though some people may desire council to fund the whole project, it's patently unfair. It's unfair on other ratepayers who have funded their own footpaths in the past through their own special rates and charges schemes, or through already developed and paid for blocks. It's unfair because it will create a difficult precedent and extra burden on the budget. And it's unfair on others in the Bellarine, for example, in Dented Head and other wards, where ratepayers have been waiting patiently for their turn, having agreed already to a principal pedestrian network, and they'll have to wait even longer. It's an extra burden on our already stressed asset renewal program. So there are many community safety and wellbeing reasons to get on with this job quickly. We've got families, toddlers, prams, and access for the disabled. All of those, as we talked about social equity earlier tonight, we've got to get on with these footpaths. $333.87 per ratepayer after completion is a good deal for all those who might have difficulties where they might even have a hardship safety net. I urge you to support this motion. It's the best way we can go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Seconder, Councillor Harwood, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'll just reserve my right at this point in time. Thank you.
No worries. Any other councillors wish to make comment on this amendment? Actually, before we progress, Councillor Mason, I'll just have you read out the exact changing of this amendment in red, just for the people at home, if you may. If not, I have it right before me.
Section 1, the red, you only want me to read the red out, is that it?
Yes.
That we declare, in accordance with the Council's newly adopted Special Rates and Charges Policy 2021, in which the Council's contribution community benefit to the scheme has increased from 50% to 65%. And then in Section 1A, we've changed the special charge from $476.95 to $333.87 to be paid over the period of 5 years. And then in section...
That is one instalment. That is one instalment over 5 years for everybody.
Yes, one instalment, yeah.
Thank you. So that's it, really. So the initial recommendation before us was a 50-50 split. This amendment by Councillor Mason is changing Council's contribution from 50 to 65%, reducing the community's contribution from 50% to 35%. As said, a reduction down to $333.87. Thank you for indulging me with that moment of clarification for all our viewers at home. Any other councillors wish to speak on this amendment, on this issue, on this 65-35 split? Councillor Mansfield?
Sorry, just a procedural point of order. I just wanted to check. I think there isn't a right of reply on amendments, so just wondering if you can reserve your right on an amendment.
No,
just for the flow of proceedings, because Councillor Mason won't get a right of reply.
Yeah, that's a proper question. I'll just consult governance on this one.
Not to be pain, but it'll just
it's proper.
affect the flow.
just receiving information now.
Mr. Acting Mayor, it probably is appropriate to explain to the community what's actually happening at the moment. We're actually asking our governance officers to give us advice on the point of order that's been raised by Councillor Mason, and we're waiting for that formal advice to be given to Councillor Sullivan, who will explain that decision to the rest of the group. We are patiently waiting because the officers are actually reading through our governance rules to actually have a formal response to us to the question and point of order that's been raised by Councillor Mansfield.
Quite correct. Thank you, Councillor Aiken. I've received information from governance that the seconder may in fact reserve their right. This has been done by head of governance, but well brought up, and anytime a council does have a question on procedural practices, it is proper to notify the chair. Do any of the councillors wish to speak on this motion? Oh, this amendment, I apologise. Councillor Nelson?
I better make sure I've got the mute off here. That's good. Yeah, I understand what Councillor Mason is trying to achieve, because we all want footpaths. Every area wants footpaths. I live in Highton, where there are some footpaths and some not footpaths, and there's some roads there that are very, very busy, and they don't have footpaths. And the SRC has a list, and sometimes we're lucky and sometimes we're not lucky. I'm unsure as to why the community benefit has changed. I have a real problem with this SRC altogether, and I think we should abandon all SRCs. Council has 127 services, and for me, that's far too many. Footpaths are our core business, and we should fund them as a matter of course. It's a failure of council and a failure of previous councils not to fund footpaths. The community benefit is for everyone, not just a percentage. And this one in particular, I think some residents are paying twice. I've had a number of phone calls today saying they're paying twice because they bought their property in the 70s, and they are paying twice. That's what they've told me. That's what I believe. So I think we need to abandon this and fund footpaths out of council's general budget, because that's our core business. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any other councillors wish to comment? If not, so Councillor Quintel, please.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Yeah, look, I appreciate that we have been talking about this for a long time, and I understand that as councillors we want to move this forward, not a millimetre at a time. But I can't but support Councillor Nelson anymore in the way that he articulated that. We do a lot of things, and a lot of them we probably shouldn't do. But as they say, roads, drainage, and footpaths and rubbish is our core business. And we have a number of suburbs that we need to catch up in. I think we're doing a better job with developers these days, but those that are without shouldn't be discriminated against because they are. And I agree with Councillor Nelson. We need to find a way to fund this type of infrastructure. Not everything comes for free. I appreciate that. But when it comes to basic infrastructure like roads and footpaths, notwithstanding that it might have been previous councils that got us here, it's for us to stand up and fix that. And I don't think we should be asking the coffers to invest in that basic right of living in a developed country and a developed suburb. So I do struggle in supporting the motion. I'm fearful that that by doing so it could jeopardise it, but nonetheless I don't feel comfortable with it. I've commented on that in our discussions, and also reserved my right in the last discussion that we had on this matter. So after further consideration and discussing it with people that have contacted me via email and phone, I've decided not to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Mansfield. Sorry?
Just got a point of order, Deputy Mayor. If I speak on this amendment, will we go back to the substantive if the amendment's won or lost, and then I can speak at that point?
If this amended motion is lost, we then refer to the original recommendation from officers, which is on the 50-50 split. If this amendment is successful, it will then become the substantive motion, and when we go back, we will be speaking on the amendment, which is the new submission. So either way, we'll be going back to speak on the item. It's just in which format.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. And look, I'll acknowledge that this has been, an extraordinarily lengthy process. I know that it's involved a huge amount of community and council time. There's been a lot of effort and emotional energy put into it. And I think, as everyone has seen from the number of times that this decision has been deferred, that we've really struggled with it as a council group for different reasons. And I'd just like to thank everyone who's been involved, thank everyone for their patience. I actually think it's been a really useful exercise to illustrate why community engagement is important. And we've tested out a unique approach to developing a precinct-wide footpath infrastructure project. And we've heard about, this is through, it lacks footpaths because of historical decisions and people's preferences at the time. And we've had change in that particular area. That now means we absolutely need those footpaths. I get that there isn't 100% community support behind the idea of having those footpaths, but the reality is anyone who's been to Ocean Grove, particularly in peak season, will see people walking all over the roads. It's a heavy foot traffic area. We are excluding people with mobility issues or prams, as has been mentioned, by not having a footpath network there. It's a safety issue, probably first and foremost. And then you look at all the benefits to health and wellbeing and environment. If we can get people walking instead of using their cars, takes pressure off parking, which I know is a real issue in that area over the summer period. So for me, fully support the footpaths. The bit that I'm still struggling with right now, and I'm still open to persuasion from my fellow councillors about this SRC, is how we fund it. I've always been a bit uncomfortable about SRCs for footpaths, in particular given their broad community benefit and the regressive nature of the charge. But this is even, more so I feel strongly about that because on this particular issue, because this is for a whole precinct. So it's a slightly different approach to an SRC. It's going to be used by a lot of people, even beyond the local community. And we've talked about, this lacks footpaths because of broad strategic decisions around that area and the developers. So I think there are problems with any approach we take to funding these footpaths, and the equity issues are at the forefront of my mind that Councillor Mason raised if council were to fully fund it. However, I do foreshadow that if this amendment is lost, I will put forward another amendment that proposes that council at least invest the money that it's set aside for this project to building at least part of this footpath network, and then we figure out through our budget processes and whatever else, we look for other funding sources for the remainder of the project. But look, I'm still on the fence about how I feel about this particular one, because it is really challenging. Ultimately, I want to see footpaths built. And so, as I said, if this is lost, I'll put forward an alternative or another amendment that provides councillors with another opportunity to build at least some of the footpaths in this proposed network.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Deputy Trent Sullivan. I haven't spoken on the amendment, and my position's actually different again. People keep saying, the community wants and needs the footpaths. Our evidence in terms of the data that was presented before us, only 57% of the population actually support the introduction of footpaths into the Ocean Grove area. So 43% of the population don't want to change what council is trying to introduce into Ocean Grove, which is a primary footpath network. And I think it is important that 43% does have a voice in the council chamber, and that's the voice that I'm supporting, and that is that they actually don't support the introduction of the primary footpath network in Ocean Grove. They want the existing amenity associated with old Ocean Grove. So as a consequence, I sympathise with Councillor Mason. He's actually trying to resolve this from a policy position, and Councillor Mason's amendment is actually to adopt a SRV scheme under our policy that this council has just recently adopted. And I thank Councillor Mason for attempting to do that, to actually look at this on a policy and strategic position as opposed to a political intervention position. But unfortunately, I actually do represent, my position represents the 43% of the population in Ocean Grove that don't want the footpaths to actually be built at all. And I think it is important that that community does have a voice in this discussion. It's not just about how we fund the footpaths. This is a polarising issue in the community of Ocean Grove, and what we refer to as the old community of Ocean Grove. And it is polarising when only 57% of the population support this infrastructure and 43% don't support the introduction of this infrastructure. So the debate's not just about how we fund it. The debate also should be discussed about the principal idea of actually having introduction of footpaths into areas that traditionally have never had them, because 43% of the population in Ocean Grove is actually saying they don't want this infrastructure to be implemented in Old Ocean Grove, and that's who I represent at the council tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Do other councillors wish to make comment? If not, I'll throw to Councillor Harwood for his reserved right.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First of all, I just want to commend Councillor Mason on taking on this particular issue, which has been quite, I guess, emotional and quite unconventional for many reasons. But Councillor Mason has managed to get a substantial increase of councillor funding up to 65% for this particular SRC. And it's been, this is not a It's not a populist move as such. This is very much about working for the community on a very, very delicate issue. And I think if we're going to talk numbers, well, 57% in anyone's language is the majority. So the majority of people want this, and we've heard that before. We've heard that quite substantially through this whole process. Is the majority of the people in Ocean Grove, want this particular SRC to take place. They want it done and dusted. It's been going for a substantial period of time. It's been deferred and adjourned ad nauseum, and they want an outcome. We know our infrastructure renewal and upgrade and service programs around the region are well behind where we need to be. We know that, and has been for a number of years, and we actually will never catch up with the current funding that we're able to allocate. And we're in a user pay community. There's basically everything that we do in the community and use, it's a user pay system as such. And we have different concessions for that. We have some areas where we have different, reductions as a matter of course. But the community has to continue to contribute to the growth of infrastructure in the region, as do the developers, as Geelong continues to grow, and will continue to grow substantially. We know that. The community has to be a partner in the financial burden of the growth of the community. In relation to the SRC as such, I guess that's the elephant in the room, so to speak. We've not been able to land on an agreed position in all this time on the SRC, and that's not going to be the case in the near future because of, I guess, the differing views, and they're to be respected. But to keep pace with the expectations of council, footpaths are one of our many core businesses. Council is no longer just rates, rubbish and roads. We're way beyond that. As was touched on, we're 127 services, and every one of those is a core function, core service to the community, depending on who you talk to. But it doesn't matter. The fact is we commit to those 127 services equally. And that's what we should do. In this particular case, I support Councillor Mason's efforts in bringing a really good economic, strategic outcome for the Ocean Grove people and for the Geelong region for this principal path network that Ocean Grove desperately needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. With that, you've reserved your right. You've spoken now. It's now time to put this one to a vote. All those in favour of Councillor Mason's amendment? That's 5 vote. All those against? That's 5-4. The motion carries. It now becomes a substantive motion. Councillor Mason, So Councillor Mason, you moved to the original one. You may speak on it again.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and I appreciate the outcome. It has been such a difficult process, and I suppose we are aware that, as I think Winston Churchill said many years ago, that democracy is not perfect, but it's the best thing that we've got. And so we do have to be concerned about minority groups always, but sometimes not to the detriment of the majority as well. Now, I was at a meeting, a community meeting this morning in Indented Head. The people in Indented Head have been waiting for their principal pedestrian network for years, and it's actually been put off a few times. They've agreed for a network. They've agreed on it, and if this 24.3 kilometres that if we don't go ahead with it now, it's going to put everything behind, everything going more slowly, or we're going to have to reassess all of our the funding that goes into all of our services. So I think that this is the most practical outcome. There are very many others that will feel aggrieved if they've paid their contributions in the past, and now suddenly, after all this time, the footpaths in Ocean Grove would be fully funded by the council. In my dreams, we should fully fund some of these community assets, but the precedent's been set years ago, and in fact, people purchased their land without the cost of the footpaths, whereas many people these days are buying through the developers, through whatever systems we've got, are already paying for their footpaths. So it's a fair enough thing that it's only a 35%. It's been reduced from 50%, 35% now, and I think it's the best way we can go to solve this problem and get on with the social equity of all of the people in Ocean Grove that have their kids and they're disabled and all the other reasons for needing footpaths. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Harwood, as seconder.
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors wish to comment on this matter? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not supportive of the SRC in the sense as Councillor Mansfield has alluded to in terms of the broader community paying for footpaths for individual roads specific to this. We did pass a special rates and charges policy recently, and I do agree with the actual policy itself. I think what I don't agree with is the broader community actually having to contribute time again after, for example, if they don't have a footpath out the front, then yes, you contribute to that particular footpath out the front of your place. But I don't necessarily agree that those that may have already bought a property that has a footpath in the front now contributing to further footpaths in that particular area. So I think we're going down the wrong path, in my view, for this broader principal place network. I don't think this is the right way to go. I think we've heard from both sides of the argument, and I think it is fair to say that it's fairly split down the middle. My view is that I would love to have seen Councillor Mansfield's motion put forward in terms of applying some of the funding that council has put aside in the budget to the particular footpaths of which the council can prioritise, which is more important at the moment. But I think we're setting a bit of a precedent, in my view, if we're putting this particular way forward. I can start to hear already communities, my community out in Windermere, especially a few in Lara, are saying, why don't we have footpaths in front of these older places in Lara? And we're going to, I think, run down a bad precedent here. So I'm going to expect those calls in the morning if this is passed. So I think officers, just be prepared that we're going to be inundated one way or the other. But at this point, I won't be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other councillors? Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. And I feel like I agree with everyone at some point tonight. Everyone's made incredibly valid points. And I'm thinking of this from a purely accessibility frame of mind. And I do think that this has been a great lesson for me in the prospects of utilitarianism and making sure that the greater good is advantaged in every case. And it is our core business. I feel like I'm just nodding with what everyone is saying. So this makes a really great point. Either way that this, the chips fall, it's making me hungry actually thinking about chips. Either way that we vote tonight, it's great because everyone's on the same page strategically. We're going to do this in the future. We're going to be putting our mind thinking, how can we make this affordable for people? What goes next? What gets chopped? Because we want to have more concrete to make sure people get where they need to be safely. I'm a clumsy person. I trip over my own shoes, and I know that footpaths and accessibility is a real key for me to getting around town and a lot of people as well, especially when we're wanting to bring people back to our region and making and accessible for all. But I also think that in our strategic discussions and in our budget, we need to have perhaps a real powwow about what this looks like on paper. I'd like to get a footpath for $300. You can't get much. I can't get a call out for that sometimes. So it would be really great to see if there's quite good value, but is that right or wrong? I mean, we could split that 1,000 ways. But what the crux of this issue is that now we're all focused on getting this done as a priority, which I think is cool. Thanks everyone for chiming in, because it's really educative, not only to me and the opinions of the community have chimed in, and really thank everyone for their contribution, because without that it is sticky to decide on anyway, and I'm kind of sitting on the fence. But I also see this as a great opportunity that either way we take it, we're going to be getting this done, and we'll be reshuffling the pieces of Jenga to figure it out and fit this in our next little bit. So thank you so much, everyone, for your investment in this and your comments. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney. Councillors wish to speak? Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I understand Councillor Mason's wanting to get this through, and I get it, Councillor Jim, I really do. But for me, it goes back to what was said before. It's a percentage: 35% community benefit, 60% community benefit, 70% community benefit, or a 20% community benefit. It's just these arbitrary numbers have been thrown around, and that's not fair. I don't think that's right. So I'm disappointed that we're not going to hear Councillor Mansfield's alternate, because I really would have supported that. And that's a real tragedy, because everyone deserves footpaths. So all of the community benefits. So whether changing the percentages the way we do from council meeting to council meeting is a failure of council. John Dory Drive are being charged for footpaths, people in Benjamin Court are being charged for footpaths, and people in Ashbury Street are being charged for footpaths, and they've already paid for a footpath before. I just can't support it. I understand it, but I think council needs to spend more money on footpaths, not less, and less money on things that are just pie in the sky stuff. This will come out in our budget deliberations. We should just set a number, whether it's 2% of our budget or 5% of our budget, and just get this done. And we'll be the council that got it done, Too many councils before us have failed. And I think we're just going to fail again. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Deputy Trent Sullivan. Look, I've expressed my view that I don't support and represent the community that doesn't support the introduction of the footpath, and clearly that position's actually been lost by the majority of councillors. So I actually think what Councillor Mason's presenting is actually the best option to move forward in terms of delivering the project. So with my vote now, I actually will support Councillor Mason's recommendation that is put before us tonight, but I do strongly say that I represent the 43% of the community that don't want to change what they have in Ocean Grove. But I understand and support that Councillor Mason actually has presented the best way forward. It's actually in line with our most recent decision about strategic SRCs. And as a consequence, that's actually how we should be making decisions as a council group, debating policy, setting strategy, and then implementing it. And Councillor Mason has attempted to retrospectively respond to this proposal. The SRC was originally 50-50. Our policy now talks about 65%. In terms of council contribution, and that's the solution that Councillor Mason has actually presented before us tonight. So I have expressed my views about the opposition to the footpaths, but I think it is pragmatic and it is important to support the strategic focus that Councillor Mason is trying to respond to this issue, and I too now will use my vote to support the position that Councillor Mason has presented for us in relation to the Ocean Grove Primary Network football.
Undone by my own self. Apologies, everybody. Yes, Belinda Maloney, Councillor Maloney, yes, you agree. Councillor Mansfield, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. And look, thank you to everyone for your contributions to this debate. As I've said in the discussion on the amendment, this is something I've really struggled with. Nothing is sitting comfortably with me. I still struggle with this SRC, but I think, and as said, the thing that has troubled me most about putting, my hesitation about putting up the amendment is around those equity issues and about how is this fair to everyone else who has had to contribute something towards a footpath, usually a lot more than what residents will have to contribute to in this one. And, the arguments put forward about other pedestrian networks and the implications for that. I do think and look, this process has already been undertaken, but I do think we need as a council we've adopted an SRC, but we need to resolve amongst ourselves, as we can see from this discussion, going forward, what we're going to do with, in particular, footpaths and the funding of footpaths and how we see this as an issue, going forward. It's for me, I see this as essential community infrastructure. But as Councillor Harwood has said, we do a whole lot of, a lot of what council does is essential for the community. So look, I apologise to other councillors who maybe wanted to have the opportunity to vote on an alternate, but I do think that, or an alternative amendment, but I have been persuaded by my fellow councillors particularly around the equity issues that would arise were we to fully fund it. The other aspect of any proposed amendment was that it was only going to fund part of this network, not the full project. And again, given the amount of time, effort, energy that has gone into this, it would be a shame, because having been through multiple budget processes, I know how these sort of bids work, and the bid for the remainder of the network, I struggle to see how that would reach the top of the pile of priorities for a very long time. So this is a way we can deliver this infrastructure. I think we've learned a lot of lessons along the way about how we approach these issues, hopefully positive lessons. And I think we've also learned that as a council, we still have some way to go to resolve how we feel about these ones. So look, again, I'm probably going to, I don't know, this is one of those really tough decisions that will probably sit on me for a long time. But I think I've been persuaded by my fellow councillors. Yes, thank you for your input.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, I appreciate the comments, particularly from Councillor Mansfield. I'm disappointed we never had a chance to debate the alternate that Councillor Mansfield had drafted, because I think she was actually right on the money. Well, certainly in terms of my point of view, I think it would have got the project going, and then we could have worked out, as Councillor Mansfield suggested, potential other ways of attracting funding for the remainder of the project. And that could have been done in line with the works being carried out. So it's a real shame because now there is no alternate to really consider. And had I known that that was going to be the outcome, I may have even considered putting one up myself. So I stick with what I suggested earlier on, in line with Councillor Nelson's comments, that I don't feel that it's fair and reasonable that these residents or the community should be contributing to this infrastructure, which, as I suggested, is core and should be a responsibility of council. So I won't be supporting this amendment that has been put forward, and won't reiterate what I had already said earlier on. Only that to say that it's a shame that we never got an opportunity to debate Councillor Mansfield's recommendation, because I thought that was the right way to go.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Other councillors? If not, I'll throw to Councillor Harwood, who reserved his right.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Look, this was always, as said, going to be a tough discussion to have, rightly or wrongly. In actual fact, there is precedent of council contributing to infrastructure for the community, and it was in the way of car parking up in Gdynia Ward, and we end up surcharging the traders as a result. So there is precedent for this process. But be that as it may, I think to do nothing, that is the failure, and that is what we've struggled with this discussion for some time. Yes, there's going to be people who are disappointed, but I think with the mechanisms in place for hardship and for the reduction of the amount and for the overall benefit for Ocean Grove far outweighs not doing anything, kicking it down the road and trying to solve it later when we have a very plausible, reasonable, majority-held answer to the problem. Again, these issues will continue to come along as we progress with development. The precedent of not having an SRC on this occasion would probably be even a bigger, more complex issue to face. We may still face it as we have further discussion, but it's good to get this one resolved at this point in time, depending how it goes. And as I say, I know one phone call I'm going to get as a result of my comments, and I'm prepared for that, and I'm happy to justify that, because at the end of the day, one, we're not going to agree, but two, if we can have all the debate and the discussion and the options to consider and then make the decision, that's a good result for us. So again, I just want to commend Councillor Mason for his work on this. And as I say, it's not populist, but it needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. And with that, I'll refer to Councillor Mason to close.
It's been a very long and rich discussion, and I think we've all learned from it. We all have the welfare of our municipality at heart, and I think I do thank all of the councillors for their inputs. I don't want to go over it all again. I think we've all heard the arguments, and so I'll leave it at that, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll put to the vote all those in favour of the substantive motion. All those against? Carried.
Deputy Mayor, can I call a division, please?
Of course you can. All those in favour of the substantive motion? Councillor Mason, Councillor Harwood, Councillor Mansfield, Councillor Aiken, Councillor Maloney, Councillor Sullivan. All those against? Councillor Grisbeck, Councillor Contell, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you.
All right, item 7 on the agenda. Tender T21000071, Werrikee Nial, Furniture Supply and Installations. Do I have a mover? It's Councillor Aiken, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Harwood, thank you. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you. Look, this is a tender awarding the supply and installation of workstations and furniture to the city's new glass office tower on Mercer Street. It has a value of $2.2 million, and it's part of the process of the city shifting to that new building, which we're still on track to occur in mid-July. And I also welcome the state government's announcement today that from 11:59 p.m. on Friday, the 25th of February, the return to office decision has been made by the state government. So it's no longer will be the position that white collar workers in administrative areas can have the decision that they no longer can return. If they feel unsafe, they don't have to return to their workplace. The state government has clearly made it a decision that from 11:59 p.m. on Friday, that all white collar workers should return to their place of work if they can. So I'm very interested to see how the City of Greater Geelong, WorkSafe, NDIA, TOC and Deakin respond to that change in state government directions, because it certainly is something that we need to justify. All officers need to move into the new office building if we're to get the full value from the investment that has been made by the community in that building.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I guess this is another large step in the development of Nial. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and we know it's due to be completed and opened later this year. And in relation to the fit out of the building, the only comment I sort of make is I would like to have seen more local businesses on the preferred suppliers list. I just note there's considerable outside companies, outside the Geelong region companies that basically fill the list. There's only one local one there, but other than that, I look forward to the final fit out matching, the outside of the building and complementing it. So it's quite exciting what we've got to, and we're nearly there. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. To speak, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Harwood, I agree with you in terms of the local procurement. I just think there probably wasn't the amount of people that applied for this particular tender, because I know that as a city we have that particular clause in our procurement to source locally if we can. So I appreciate your comment. And I think, in terms of this is a tender in terms of the building furniture. But I will say that, in relation to the announcement that Councillor Aiken had referred to from the Premier, I think what we have to learn is that businesses are now no longer just office-based businesses, and that we have to, the agreement between an employer and an individual is about how you need to work. And I think what we need to realise going forward is that it's not just a 9 to 5 employment arrangement with particular individuals that need to attend the office all the time. So I think a hybrid way of working is the future. And I think any agreement between the organisation and an individual needs to take into account a whole range of things, from the work requirements, the employer's expectations, the employee's ability to do that work from wherever the employee or the employer might say is appropriate. So there is a whole lot of factors to go into the individual arrangements. Whilst I agree with Councillor Aiken, we need to get people back into the CBD. There are many businesses and across the CBD that are doing that, but also introducing a different way of working. So there's a balance there, I think, about how we engage that community back in. And I'm looking forward to seeing the new furniture in the new building. And, because of COVID, we have obviously amended and changed some things in that new building to really agree and make sure that the employees have a great experience when they come in. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of people back into the CBD, but just caution that there are some individual agreements that between employers and employees that could change the way that we work going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Quintel.
Oh, sounds like we're doing an enterprise agreement here. It's where we're heading with this. I thought it was furniture. Yes, just very quickly, positive, but as per Councillor Harwood's comments, it's just disappointing that there's no or little to none, from what I could see, of Geelong businesses in there. It's the one opportunity, that you get for probably a decade or more in this space, and that we weren't able to either encourage or didn't have the interest levels from Geelong businesses is severely disappointing, given that our desire as a councillor group, at least, is to see Geelong businesses have an opportunity in these types of spaces. And I'm hoping that with the rest of the bill, there is still more opportunities for Geelong businesses for other services, but it is certainly disappointing given the level of investment that we're putting into this.
Thank you, Councillor Quintel. Any other councillors to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Nothing further to add, Trent.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. With that, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 8. The proposed sale of land, 275 Forest Road, South Lara. Can we have a mover? Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Aiken, thank you. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is the outcome of the community engagement in relation to the proposed sale of 275 Forest Road, South Lara. For those that are joining from home, this is the piece of land right where the railway line crosses Forest Road as you would head towards Geelong, just past the woolsheds on the left-hand side. This was surplus land to the city's needs, and the consultation with the community, there was no submissions received in relation to their either objection or support. So at this point in time, we will go to the next stage and approve the land for sale. This particular piece of land will still have covenants on it in relation for the state transport authority for rail purposes. If there's any future potential of a rail siding needed for the GREP, the industrial area to the south of Lara. This will also have an easement over the property for drainage infrastructure for drainage purposes going forward. But it is one of those particular places that is surplus to our needs. And so we will continue on the process. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken.
Look, nothing further to add. I think Councillor Grisbeck has done a fantastic job summing up the issue.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other councillors wish to make comment? If not, Councillor Grisbeck is closed.
Thank you. Nothing further, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 9, the proposed sale of land adjacent to 17 Rosemont Crescent, Bell Post Hill. Do I have a mover? Councillor Contell, thank you. And seconder, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Look, in a similar theme to the previous report, this is a slither of land in Bell Post Hill, just near the railway tracks, in fact, between Anarchy Road and Rollins Road, or the new highway. It's a discontinued road reserve. It was actually discontinued by the Karaya Shire in the day. It's about 120 square metres of land. The previous owner of the home adjacent to this land, which is 17 Rosemont Crescent, had and has already built some dwellings on this parcel of land. We went out to the community to seek any submissions that may be for or against in us actually selling this land. There was no submissions received. And so what's being requested tonight is for Council to approve the sale of the land and allow the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to sign all the documentation to complete the sale.
Thank you very much, Councillor Contell. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Contell. I think he's outlined the substance of this motion well, and I don't really have anything further to add.
Thank you. Any other councillors care to comment? If not, Councillor Contell to close.
Nothing further, Deputy Mayor.
No worries, thank you. With that, we'll put to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried. Item number 10, Financial Management Report, December 2021. Do I have a mover? Councillor Aiken, thank you. And seconder, Councillor Harwood, thank you. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Deputy Trent Sullivan. This is actually a good news report for the council and also the community. Originally, our budget projections were a deficit of $8.1 million for the City of Greater Geelong. At the end of December, which is what this report actually is covering in terms of the financial period, we're now forecasting a $1.8 million deficit. So it's actually quite a significant turnaround. In fact, it's a $6.3 million favourable position compared to our original budget position that we did have. And what's fascinating is what makes up those numbers to justify why we're now looking at possibly even a break-even position, surplus, or even just a slight deficit. And in fact, part of the issue was associated with the restrictions that we had during the July-December period. And we actually had a favourable reduction in our employment costs during that period, which were a total of $5.3 million less in expenditure associated with our staff costs. And that also flowed through to contractors and expenditure associated with recycling and repairs and maintenance and other areas. Something that the community and council group would be fascinated in as well too is that we actually made significant doubtful debt provisions in our budget. And that's where we were expecting not to get the rate revenue coming in associated with COVID impacts with people capacity to play. And what has happened is it's actually been favourable to us by $2.2 million. So in fact, what happened was we anticipated there would be more stress and hardship in the community paying rates. And during this period, we've been able to estimate that we've overestimated, in fact, our provisions by $2.2 million. So that's been favourable for us as well too. And the continued growth that Geelong has seen in terms of housing development during the last 6 months has had a favourable impact for us as well, in that we've received $1.3 million worth of new supplementary rates as the council. And also an accounting position, the Commonwealth and state grants, we actually received a favourable third round of state government outdoor grants, which councillors may remember that was for the alfresco areas and other COVID supports. And in fact, during the 6-month period, we were up $5.3 million associated with our original budget forecasts in terms of grants. So it's actually a good news story that we continued to support our community during COVID. We continued to invest in our community during COVID, but our financial position has improved. And the fascination that I've had as the chair of the finance committee and talking to the CEO and also the director in that area was that we've actually saved money by not doing our services. And it's a bit of a, it's a conundrum that the city has that, in fact, we subsidise and support our services clearly quite significantly. And by actually not running them during the restrictions, we saved a significant amount of money. And that's through to our bottom line. So well done to all the finance team who continue to do a fantastic job. I welcome Councillor Harwood, who's joined me in the portfolio as the deputy for the next couple of months during Mayor Ash's leave of absence. And I'm pleased that the first report that I can present as chair and Councillor Harwood as deputy is a significant turnaround in our financial position for the City of Greater Geelong, where we are looking at a forecast of a $1.8 million deficit, but I actually think we will break even and possibly have a slight surplus for the financial year, which is a fantastic result in managing the organisation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Harwood, second.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll just add a few points, but Councillor Aiken's covered off a number of the important, numbers there, and it is the huge document as such, the financial management reports, and can only do justice by going online and having a read if you want to go through the real data of it. But it does align with the community plan and strategic priority, and the strong local economy. And again, Councillor Aiken touched on that with the growth of the area and the increase of funds coming into the council, and the irony of a pandemic allowing council to also save money in a substantial manner. But it's always going to be a fluid document and process. It's ever changing. Our budget varies on many things, even as we have seen this evening with its discussion about SRCs, public housing, regional growth, even COVID for that matter. So quite simply, I just want to thank Michael Degina and the staff on, again, presenting a really comprehensive document that gives a really clear and concise overview of the council, and the community should feel confidence in the process that we go through and the auditing process that we have, including the risk and audit and risk committee that oversees a lot of the finance as well. We have very stringent and diligent processes in place to protect the community and their finances. And I think this particular result thus far is positive, and we'll continue to see what changes come. But the management report to date is, as Councillor Aiken has said, favourable and well done.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harwood. Well said. Any other councillors care to comment? Councillor Quintel, please.
Just quickly, as Councillor Harwood has said, Councillor Aitken has articulated this very well. It is a tale of two stories, though, isn't it? We've got lower employee costs, lower contractor costs, but unfortunately that comes on the back of some real pain that the community has gone through over the last couple of years, where many facilities have obviously not been open and haven't been functioning. People have been out of work, and so it is difficult. It is a good news story, but it also comes off the back of some real pain that the community has felt, as has our country and the world as a whole. Having said that, it's great to see that we've got rates that are coming in now through further development in our region. I just once again note that we're slightly off on capital expenditure, about 22 odd million. Understand that some of that might be timing, but as every month passes and we know that it's more and more difficult to seek supplies and suppliers of material, and also contractors and tradespeople, it's a challenge to deliver on that infrastructure spend that we've got budgeted. So we need to really keep on that, because otherwise we understand that those works that are needing to be done just continue to get delayed, and that could also cost us through increased maintenance costs in maintaining older facilities or infrastructure that really is due for upgrading or repair. The only other thing I'd say we need to keep an eye on is, whilst our work cover costs are below budget, they're still slightly higher than the differentiation between our salary costs, just slightly, but we'll need to keep an eye on that. And of course, that comes with making sure that we manage the health and safety of our workforce appropriately. And that's something that we really need to be having as a high priority, which I'm sure it is, but it's never one to be complacent about.
Thank you, Councillor Quintel. Any other councillors to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, Deputy Trent. Look, it is a good result. It's always good if you can continue to invest in your community and also balance your books. So it is that's the way we're heading. Councillor Gresbeck earlier on tonight articulated some significant headwinds that we're facing. The loss of rate revenue associated with social housing around the municipality is estimated to be about $3.6 million per year, per annum, when it's actually introduced. So that's going to be a significant impost on the council. And I spoke about how we've had an increase in our supplementary rates in the last 6 months. Well, if there's a significant decline in the housing development growth in the Geelong region, that will impact on us in terms of going forward as well too, because we have projected growth rates over 2%. And if the growth rates in Victoria drop down because of the new taxation regime that's being introduced by the state government, it will significantly impact on us as a council in terms of our financial position as well too. So there's a lot of headwinds that are coming up. It is appropriate that we actually participate in the debate of those issues, and we draw the attention to the state government about the financial impact it will make on us. And of course, we're operating under a rate capping regime, which actually means you can't just increase other people's rates to be able to subsidise the loss of this income. We actually operate under a very tight environment in terms of financially going forward as well too. So the headwinds are there, but the bottom line at the present time is quite good, and I look forward to bringing the next quarterly report, which will be due after.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. And with that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Item 11 this evening, Transformation Program Progress Report, December 2021. Do I have a mover? Councillor Harwood, thank you. Seconded? Councillor Nelson, thank you. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The report basically makes up 6 components, and start with the civic precinct, which we've had a brief discussion on earlier, the most significant development undertaken by council. And it's basically in line with the, I guess, the result we've got with the Geelong Library, and we see the success of that. So the civic precinct, we're hoping will have that similar impact on the community benefit. Obviously, we want it's travelling on time, and the possession, as I said, will be hopefully later this year. So it's got exciting social and economic opportunities for council. Digital modernisation, not my area of expertise, but obviously we're spending extensive funds in the budget on this modernisation, increasing the connection of our community to do business with council. We want to do it in a more seamless manner, which is, I guess, part of making sure we are properly connected to the community. Asset management, this has been a huge undertaken effort by council, exactly a huge continuing body of work, which is processing data on all aspects captured, including valuation of open space assets. So there's literally thousands and thousands of assets held within council, and to be managing them and be aware of all of them as such is a huge task. Advocacy and stakeholder management. This is a critical component, given we have federal and state elections on us at the moment. We've managed to secure about $36 million in funding in recent times, but maybe it's another opportunity to go back to the feds and the state to contribute further to their Northern Aquatic Community Hub. One more bite at the cherry, as they say, because we have really picked up the heavy lifting of this one, despite our strongest advocacy for greater support there. So I just sort of put that out there that, we've got a really strong crew or staff advocating for us, and I think this is one that we still may not let go. And particularly as council continues to engage in many different areas of the region, our advocacy and stakeholder management is critical to ensuring we get the best results. People and culture, the workforce planning of the future, probably the biggest and most contentious area to date. I guess given the significant change of staff in the organisation in many areas of council, there's been a huge number leave the organisation, and obviously a very high number of new staff recruited into many areas of the organisation. And many were long-serving council officers, so there's quite a void, I guess, now of knowledge and experience built up over many years that we're now looking to rebuild and replace. So that will be an interesting process as we go through, but we do see a huge shift, I guess, in the personnel within the organisation itself. And I guess as Bob Dylan's saying, there are times they are changing, and we're seeing that quite substantially. And the last one is service planning and review. I don't know much about this one, but it's upgrading operating models and data management and governance. And that's about as best I can say on that one. But obviously the transformation has come out of a need to, I guess, overhaul the organisation in many areas, which is continuing. And it's not cheap to do. It comes at a high cost, not just financially, but also, as we see, in personnel. But and I guess it will be some time before we see the real fruits of that work, and hopefully that continues to drive us well into the future. So I'll leave it there for the moment and see what others might wish to say on the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Well said. Councillor Nelson to second.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Harwood said pretty much everything needs to be said there, especially with regard to how we're changing and we're moving. We're moving into our new offices over the next, I think from June, I think we start moving in. So that'll be good for officers to all be in the same place. Something that we've been advocating for a number of years, and hopefully we'll get to continue to be in that building and own that building and be an asset for the community. But something else that Councillor Harwood touched on was that $44 million going out to the north because our state and federal members out in the north don't want to spend any money on their own communities. So hopefully with the federal and state elections coming up, they'll put their money where their mouths are and contribute to this great project out in the north. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to just quickly go back to one of the items that Councillor Harwood has mentioned in terms of people and culture, and I'm really love to see the Working Better Together program. And I think, you know, as Councillor Harwood has said, there has been some movement in the particular people coming and going from the city. But I think what we've started here, in my perspective, is the really building that leadership capability framework, the roadmap about how to inclusion. I think the procurement processes around the learning development curriculum are really in that final stage. I'm really positive about this. Working Better Together will really give us the platform how to work. And as I said in the previous item about how do we work the future ways of working, how do we work in a hybrid way with our staff. I think this is particular item. I'm really pleased to see that we are on track, if not in front. So we're launching a new employee opinion survey within a city. So we'll really get an insights into how our employees are feeling, and hopefully we can get that full 360 back and show them some of the things that we're doing as a result of surveying them. So. Kudos to Karina Filand and the team in People and Culture. I think calling out this one is really important given the current environment on which we're working. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Deputy Trent Sullivan. Look, I want to echo Councillor Grisbeck's comments as well too. I think it is important that we have to say we've actually got the greatest level of stability in our senior management team we've had for a very long time in the city of Greater Geelong. And we're now starting to see the development of that strategic and cultural change that we've all been working towards in the city. And I think it is important that we actually do acknowledge that the city actually has done a bloody good job over the last 2 years during COVID, and it continues to do a bloody good job in terms of all of our staff. And our senior management team do need to be recognised for what they have actually been able to achieve, and our CEO as well too, because I can't remember a period of stability in terms of the senior management team that we're now experiencing at the moment in the city of Greater Geelong. And that is flowing, that calmness and consistency of decision making is flowing through to the other areas of the council. And when you do talk to rank and file staff at the coalface, they actually are saying that they've never felt more engaged than what they have today, and they are saying that they feel really proud to say they're associated and be employees of the city of Greater Geelong. And I think that's a really good endorsement of the culture of the organisation and how we are heading. One of our clear strategic aims is to be a high-performing organisation and a high-performing council. And I think we are on track to meet those very lofty ambitions. We are now seen as an employer of choice, which is fantastic, which certainly wasn't the case 4 or 5 years ago for the city of Greater Geelong. And I look forward to hearing more reports about the cultural change and what is happening in the city, because I think it's extremely positive at this point in time.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. The other councillors care to comment? Before I throw back to Councillor Harwood to close.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the comments from the other councillors. I guess we all have a high vested interest in the report, and obviously the machinations of local government. I just want us to, continue to be fundamentally focused on what's the benefit to the community. Everything we do has to lead to benefit for the community, and we are undergoing substantial change and it is having different impacts through the organisation. And I guess only time will tell us and dictate the real benefits that we are seeking. So, and we look forward to that. So, thank you.
Excellent. And with that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Item 12, Audit and Risk Committee, appointment of members. Do I have a mover? Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nelson. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is one audit. As soon as you mention audit and risk, a smile goes on my face. I love the Audit and Risk Committee. I'm really pleased that this paper tonight is actually endorsing the members on to the Audit and Risk Committee. You'll note that if you've read the paper that we're appointing 3 councillors as members of the Audit and Risk Committee. One is Councillor Stephanie Asher as the Mayor, myself and Councillor Murray as the nominated councillor delegate. And the charter provides that the Deputy Mayor's attendance as delegate for the Mayor if the Mayor is away. So I'm really pleased that to be putting this paper up tonight, and I'm sure Councillor Murray will find it a riveting committee to be on. I think you really understand the machinations of council when you sit on the Audit and Risk Committee, and so I'm pleased to be able to put that motion forward tonight. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Nelson.
Nothing much further, Deputy Mayor, other than it's sad that I lost the vote and Councillor Murray, he got on there instead of me.
To lose a vote, Councillor Nelson, one must have to nominate themselves. Any other councillors wish to comment? Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Deputy Trent Sullivan. Look, I think it is appropriate to explain to the community we're not putting Councillor Murray on this committee because he's not here tonight. He actually has volunteered to actually be a backup for Councillor Grisbeck if she is unable to attend the Audit and Risk Committee meetings. And as Councillor Grisbeck said, look, the Audit and Risk actually is the compliance engine room of the City of Greater Geelong. And if you really want to know what is happening in an organisation that has 127 services and how those services are actually continuously under review and investigation and audit, this is the committee to participate on. We've had some really good outcomes associated from it in the last few years. And I mean, the community wouldn't understand some of the breadth of things that they undertake. A good example was they did an audit of all our buildings for the cladding that actually is on the outside of buildings, and actually assessed that we were in a fairly good position, and we didn't have a major expenditure and reforms associated with that, but that was driven by the audit committee to actually look at all our infrastructure and see if that was an emerging risk associated with our investments and budgets that we have going forward as well too. So the audit and risk is a fantastic thing, and I look forward to Councillor Murray and Councillor Grisbeck reporting back to us regularly about what actually is happening, and I have every confidence that both Councillor Murray and Councillor Grisbeck will be good representatives on that committee for us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It was my pleasure to be the delegate for a couple of years, and I do endorse what Councillor Grisbeck said, that it's really a very important committee. In fact, it's another framework. It's a risk framework and an audit framework. Everything that we do, we have to consider the risk. And it's really quite a strong discipline. It's been really well led over recent years, and I'm pleased that others are taking the opportunity to take up this responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors care to comment? I'll throw back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Mason stole my closing thunder. Thank you, Councillor Mason, for your attendance on the committee. But just to know that there is an open door policy at the Audit and Risk Committee for all councillors to come and be part of that meeting. You all also get all the papers that goes to that Audit and Risk Committee. So it is an exciting time for council. We are on a transition, a transformation. So, now is the time to really get your teeth into audit and risk. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. With that, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The motion is carried. Excellent. Now that concludes section B, reports for this evening. We'll now move into section C, notices of motion. I've received one from Councillor Quintel regarding Geelong Miniature Railway. Thank you, Councillor Quintel, for presenting this notice of motion for us tonight. Can I please have a seconder to consider this notice of motion? Councillor Mansfield, thank you. Councillor Quintel, over to you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. First of all, thank you to Councillor Mansfield for assisting me with this notice of motion. This relates to the Geelong Miniature Railway. We heard some questions from them earlier in the evening. They're a non-for-profit voluntary association, and they've been dealing with us and engaging with us for probably around 7 years. And even before that they were established, they were talking to us as a council. They are first and foremost a community-minded group and wanting to contribute back to the community. But they also are railway enthusiasts. That's the tool, that's the mechanism they use to engage with the community. And what they would like to try to achieve is to have a voluntary run tourist attraction and a community hub in the Geelong area. Likely and favourably would be in the north of Geelong if that's the way it worked out, but also to then provide education and training to young people that are particularly interested in engineering and welding and assembling things. And they've been doing that already. They've linked up with Gateway. They're in Thompson's Road. Gateway's been a huge supporter of them. They have given them facilities. They've been travelling around schools with their portable railway tracks, which we supported through a letter of support as well. And they've been teaching kids about engineering practices and basically providing a really good activity for kids that may not be typically sports children, but want to get involved in different things, may have a more art or trades type of engineering type slant to them. What they'd like to do is try and find some land, about 10 acres or so, to develop this miniature railway. And to do that, they're asking for council to support in that. We're principally supportive of the concept, but to establish whether it's viable or not, we need to see a business plan and a feasibility study. We've been encouraging them to go and get that done. They've applied for a number of grants and haven't been successful in getting over the line with those. And yet, so we're encouraging them on one hand, but discouraging them on the other. We support many organisations with business plans and feasibility studies, and this is just another one of those. As I said before, they've got thousands of supporters and hundreds of letters of support, which I will get shared with the councillors. What I can assure you of that I hold in here is a letter from nearly every MP in our region, state and federal. Erin's there, Miles is there, Henderson's there, Cousins is there. All offering letters of support. The Rotary Clubs of Corio and Belmont. We've got Northern Bay College. We've got Gateway. We've got the Corio Bay Health Group, the Salvation Army. They are all supporting the concept of a miniature railway. I've had calls from John Erin personally saying that if he can help, he would like to be involved. So what we're suggesting today is that we provide $50,000 for the Geelong Miniature Railway to undertake and engage an independent and appropriately qualified expert to then draft a feasibility study for the proposal that they've got, and for us to then assess that further. We're not committing to any further funding beyond the $50,000, and what we are doing though is giving them an opportunity to provide proof of concept, I guess, of this project that seems to be extremely well supported by the community by and large, and also the various levels of government, or at least their representatives here in the Geelong region. So I think this is an excellent initiative. I thank the Geelong Miniature Railway for people for being so enthusiastic over the years, and also for generating pledges of up to close to 150,000 on their own with goodwill and in-kind support for the future development of a miniature railway track should they be able to proof the concept and then be able to access the appropriate land to be able to develop something like this initiative on there. So with that, I'll leave it at that for this point in time. Let Councillor Mansfield and others talk to it further.
Thank you, Councillor Quintel. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan, and thank you, Councillor Quintel. I think you've outlined the case very well and provided some good context for the discussion here. When I first became a councillor, I think it had to have been one of the first approaches I had from members of the community for my ear to hear their story. It was this group representing the Geelong Miniature Railway. They made a really compelling case for why this is a worthwhile project, and I don't think at any point anyone who's heard this, heard the story, could think anything otherwise. It is a worthwhile idea. The trouble has been that through all of that time, we've been, that group has been in multiple discussions with our officers, with, as Councillor Quintel said, approached various MPs, and we've been, working with them to try and find some appropriate arrangements without ever really getting anywhere. And a lot of it has come back to the fact that there isn't, we haven't got a properly planned business case, an assessment of exactly what is needed, where, if it, and whether this project is genuinely viable in our region. And I think this funding offers the opportunity to give that certainty one way or another. We'll get an answer, hopefully, from this business case. I know in the questions that were put forward that, there were a number of parcels of land that were raised as potential sites, but I know that they've been looked at and discussed, and we've got a lot of other community groups who approach us for that land for other purposes. We're looking at things like, we've got a lot of competing interests for our land. So if we're going to, it's a big deal giving over council land for a project, and we need to have a good business case to base that decision on. I think, again, based on the representations that this group have made, but also, I've had a lot of community members and organisations contact me urging me to support this project. I feel that, that this is justified, that this will give us some clarity after many years of discussions around this issue about whether the project is viable, hopefully it'll give us some ideas about where something like this could go, and we can have some meaningful discussions one way or another at the end of it. I would like to note that in the notice of motion, this is a limited any funding beyond the feasibility study at this stage. This is really about assisting the organisation so that they can continue to have, meaningful conversations with different bodies going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillors care to comment? Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Deputy Trent Sullivan. Look, I support the recommendation that's before us. I think it is important that this proposal be professionally and independently assessed, and that's actually what this is actually going to do. What this group has is incredible goodwill. It also comes from good community-minded people, and that's why it deserves to be investigated. What we do understand is that we have the whole of the city of Greater Geelong, not just, I mean, I represent the north, so, I jump on board and say, yes, let's support it. But it is important to express that we have been lobbied in the last few weeks about the Port Arlington Miniature Railway Group, who are actually saying, well, what support are you going to give us if you're going to support this group? We've also had others that have come forward with other ideas to say, well, why don't you give us the same opportunity as well too? I think it's been articulated why we're prepared to support an investigation into this proposal. And I look forward to that professional and independent assessment, because it will give us a clear direction about what we need to do as a council group. And I'd like to encourage the group to consider that they look at other site locations as well too, apart from just those that they've mentioned. One of them I'd love to them to consider is the Tom McLean Linear Park, which is the old Cement Works railway line. There may be a great opportunity to be able to do something along that. That linear park runs from Separation Street to McCurdy Road. In fact, as a rail line, it may be a really good idea to actually put a miniature railway in that site location, because it has limited impact on open space. And there may be other site locations as well too. We even attended a presentation by Barwon Water talking about the Ballerine Basin, and they actually talked about a miniature railway as a concept proposal for that site location as well too. So there's lots of discussions at the present time about miniature railways and opportunities, and I think council does have a responsibility to properly assess this. Look at the Port Arlington one as well too. I don't think we should be doing this independently of what is happening down in Port Arlington. And my last one is, I did receive a quick text message, Councillor Contel. It is the Lions Club of Corio Norlane, and they certainly want to make sure we recognise that it's not just Norlane. And if you've been involved in service clubs, you'll know it's very important to make sure that the right clubs actually acknowledge. So it's actually the Lions Club of Corio Norlane.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Very well timed. Councillor Howard, you wish to speak? Yep.
Thank you. Look, I just want to support the notice of motion that has been brought to tonight's meeting. It's, as Councillor Contel has alluded to, it's been a long time coming. From this group have been vigilant in putting together their documents and their desires. So, and I guess this is demonstrating the power of the community in some aspects of wanting to get something up and heard by their local representatives. So I think it's hats off to that particular group who have at times perhaps felt unheard and not going to, I guess, get the result they've been seeking. But I think this particular process and what's happening tonight should give the community in general confidence that, perseverance is often the key. And just a quick note, Councillor Aiken is right that the path of Tom McLean does go through that area, but it actually stops at Church Street, and it's actually picked up from there to McCurdy Road is the former Olympian Gabrielle Blythe. Just a small point of order, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors to speak? If not, I'll offer back to Councillor Contel to close on his motion.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan, and thanks for all the contribution in terms of commentary and also clarification on the various points and details. Thank you for that. I don't think there's too much more to be said other than, in line with Councillor Harwood's comments before, as Johnny Cash sang, I hear the train a coming.
Thank you, Councillor Contel. And with that, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? Fantastic. All those against?
Toot toot.
Carried. Thank you. Yes, toot toot indeed. All right. Congratulations, Councillor Contel. With that, I'll move into section D, record of informal meetings of councillors. Can I please have a mover for the record of informal meetings of councillors? Councillor Harwood, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Mansfield. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. Section E, can I please have a mover for the planning delegations? Councillor Grisbeck, seconded by Councillor Harwood. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Well, thank you, councillors. As there's no further items left for discussion, that concludes tonight's council meeting. Thank you to everybody who's joined us from home, who's still with us. It's been greatly appreciated, and this live streaming will be available online for all those who wish to view it at a later date. I'll just declare this meeting closed at 9:16 p.m. Thank you all.